Thank you, Councilwoman. Now I'd like to call to order the meeting of February 20th, Assisted Housing Governing Board meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member DeCiccio. Board Member Guevara.
Here.
Board Member Mendoza. Board Member Nowakowski. Board Member Pastor.
Here.
Board Member Stark. Board Member Wiesahan.
Here.
Vice Chair Waring. Here. Chairwoman Williams.
Here. I believe the first item is the approval of the February 6, 2019 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
So move. Oh, sorry.
We have a motion and a second, I believe. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 4 is a resolution. Do you have a motion for that, please?
I move that the resolution adopting the Housing Department's annual agency plan, the Capital Fund Program HUD form, the Capital Fund 5-year action plan, the Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan, and the Admissions and Continued Occupancy Policy for Public Housing, authorizing the Housing Department to submit the respective documents to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I move for a motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries unanimously. I believe that's the only items we have, so we will stand adjourned. We will now go into our formal council meeting. Our interpreter is Mario Barajas. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My name is Mario Barajas. I'm going to be making a brief announcement for Spanish speakers that might be attending today. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mario Barajas. Yo voy a estar sirviendo como el intérprete de esta tarde. Si acaso necesitara servicios de interpretación, pueden pasar acá hacia atrás, la parte de atrás, a hablar con el miembro del personal. Podrán hablar con Nick y él les puede facilitar los aparatos para poder escuchar la interpretación en el español. Gracias. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Could you call roll, please?
Councilman DeCiccio. Councilwoman Guevara.
Here.
Councilwoman Mendoza.
Here.
Councilman Nowakowski. Here. Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilwoman Stark. Here. Vice Mayor Waring. Here. Mayor Williams.
Here. Brings us to citizens' comments. Desiree Mays, you have 3 minutes, and Elvis Kesto will follow her.
Hello again, honorable representatives. I told you we'd be back. My name is Desiree Mays. I'm a Christian and a member of Apologia Church, and I first off just want to thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak to you today. As you know, HB 2696 was presented today, and this is the allotted citizen comment time. And as a citizen, I would just like to say that I'm utterly disgusted and angry. I honestly can't even believe that anyone would have the audacity to present a bill like this, and that there would be others openly supporting it. Thank God it got killed today. Here's the thing, we should all be equally outraged at abortion at any stage because it's murder, whether it's a baby at 5 weeks gestation, 20 weeks, or 40 weeks. People don't become more or less valuable because of their age. It's just that one of the whole arguments of the pro-choice movement is that the baby in the womb is an unviable clump of cells. Again, an unscientific argument that's outdated by decades. But here's the hard truth that we saw in vivid color today. Those who support abortion, when presented with this scenario of a baby actually surviving a botched abortion and is laying on the operating table breathing, want the abortionist to have the right to legally look that baby in the face and watch her die a slow and painful death when they have the power to help her. Can you think of anything more barbaric? Make no mistake, this is the agenda of the pro-choice movement. Abortion on demand, at any stage, no restrictions for any reason. And now they're pushing for the rights to kill outside of the womb. What's next? 2-year-olds? 8-year-olds? Murder is murder at any age. So how do we stop this? More abortion regulations? Pro-life bill after bill has been passed regulating abortion. Just 2 years ago, Senate Bill 1367 was passed here that strengthens Arizona's law to ensure babies born alive after an abortion would receive life-saving care. You see, we don't need more legislation to regulate abortion. We need to end it. You all know we already have a current law in the books that criminalizes abortion. We need AZ Statute 13-3603 to be upheld. You are all neglecting to do what you've been sworn in office to do, which is uphold the law. It is your duty to establish justice for every person, regardless of their age. And I will remind you again that 60 million babies have been murdered since Roe v. Wade. More will die gruesome and barbaric deaths today in this city and in this state. How many more have to die until you'll do something? Please, let this be the day that you get the courage to stand up for what is right. If you do, we pledge to stand behind you. We don't need cowards in office. We need bold men and women who will take a stand for what is right, regardless of what our culture and society says. Never forget that slavery was once legal in our country, and it took Americans like you and like me to say no more. Please go to endabortionnow.com to join us in this fight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Elvis Kesto, and then Zachary Morgan.
Good morning, honorable representatives of Arizona. My name is Elvis Kesto, a registered nurse with the state of Arizona and a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm here this morning to speak about a most egregious evil taking place in our very backyard. Every day, over 3,000 babies are murdered in utero. Let me explain. A first trimester abortion can be done several ways. Taking the RU486 pill, which deprives the baby of life-sustaining progesterone, much like strangling a child until she dies. In a bizarre twist of irony, the German chemical manufacturer IG Farben that supplied the gas used in the Nazi Holocaust, get this, is also the company that later provided RU486 for America's new Holocaust. Surgical suction DNC, usually from 5 to 13 weeks, is the most common first trimester abortion. A suction device about 20 times more powerful than a household vacuum is turned on, and the growing baby is rapidly torn apart limb from limb. Mind you, at just 18 days, a heartbeat is detected. A second trimester abortion performed at 13 to 24 weeks is known as dilatation and evacuation. Because the child is so large, the mother's cervix must be dilated 24 hours in advance. A sulfur clamp with jagged metal teeth on the end is used to clamp down on a limb, and the abortionist pulls and twists as hard as he can, brutally tearing off a leg, an arm, spinal cord, heart, intestines, one by one, as the baby is writhing in abject pain, desperately trying to move away. Meanwhile, the baby's blood is profusely poured out through mom's body in the same canal that was meant to receive this child with arms of love and joy. The most difficult part is the head, because the skull has calcified. The abortionist goes back in, clamps down hard, and he knows he's crushed the head when a white substance comes oozing down his clamp. This was the baby's brains. He then assembles the baby on a medical tray like a puzzle to make sure there are 2 legs, 2 arms, and all the pieces. What I am describing is murder. Under Arizona Statute 13-3603, abortion is a crime punishable by no less than 2 years in prison. My friends, God's judgment is upon this once great land. The Bible says God hates the hands that shed innocent blood. We must all stand before the judgment seat of Christ and give an account of what we did to help the most precious and innocent among us. God commands you as civil magistrates to uphold justice. By hearing this today, God will hold you accountable to how you respond. Consider that your life is a vapor. You are here today and you're gone tomorrow. Jesus said, "What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? It is not my desire that you drink a sea of his wrath for a fleeting moment of borrowed pleasure." I truly love you all, and I'm praying for you guys to do the right thing. Please check out endabortionnow.com for more information.
Thank you. Zachary Morgan, and then Jeff Durbin.
My name is Zach Morgan. I am a pastor at Apologia Church, and I do appreciate this opportunity to speak to you once again. Just to be frank and very honest, I don't enjoy coming here month after month to speak to you all. This is purely my opinion, but I would venture to say that my desire to be here is probably in proportion to your desire to continue to listen to what my brothers and sisters have to say these past few months. But duty calls, right? As Christians, our twofold primary duties are to love God and love our neighbors. We come here to be obedient to those commands, not just with our lips, but with our actions. We continue to address you and will continue this effort until the bloodshed of innocent preborn neighbors stops. Soft, precious, fragile, defenseless, helpless, voiceless, preborn little baby girls and baby boys continue to be brutally executed in our state. That's 14,400 a year, 1,200 a month, and 40 every single day. That's every 36 minutes a precious baby's life is torn from them. And according to God, babies that are executed via abortion are murdered. Abortion is the murder of the most innocent and helpless amongst us. Can you imagine if every day there was a mass shooting in one of our preschools and 40 little lives were brutally murdered? And that bloodshed continued day after day after day with no collective sense of urgency to stop it from happening. Do you remember how you felt on December 14th when you first got the news that 20 young children had been murdered at Sandy Hook Elementary School? I remember feeling so sick and appalled and helpless. Ladies and gentlemen, Sandy Hook happens twice a day in our state, every single day. And that's not 20, but 40 precious, innocent human beings, their lives being cut short. And right now, I think you may just mentally answer that my comparison with Sandy Hook may be wrong. But if the baby in the womb is not alive and not human, then you got me. And I think we should all just pack up and go home and cease doing what we do here. But you know the truth. We don't have to prove it to you because you know it. The baby in the womb, although at a different stage of development, environment, size, and a degree of dependency, is no less human than a 2-year-old playing happily in a preschool. Babies are continuing to die day after day, and I, for one, just can't go on pursuing my own interests and focusing on lesser issues until this bloodshed is over. As our governing leaders, the onus is on you to protect innocent life. You aren't doing enough. You aren't as enraged about this Holocaust as you need to be. Pro-life bills that regulate child murder are not the answer to end abortion. Why? Because babies continue to die every single day, every single 36 minutes. You must do your duty, enforce the law. How are you going to be remembered during this time of innocent bloodshed? Did you do all that you could do to save lives, or did you cower in this hour when your action is most needed? Ladies and gentlemen, you need to wake up.
Jeff Durbin, and then Luke Pearson.
Honorable Representatives, hello again. My name is Pastor Jeff Durbin. I'm the lead teaching pastor at Apologia Church and the head of End Abortion Now. You'll remember that we've been before you on numerous occasions reminding you of your duty to uphold justice and to protect the lives of the human beings in your district. You have the moral duty before God and the people you represent to interpose between innocent human beings and their attackers. Today, innocent human beings have been victimized under your watch. Your watch. While you speak and legislate on issues that relate to justice and the preservation of human life, you have been ignoring the most obvious issue before all of us. Mothers and fathers today have brought their little boys and girls into facilities within a few miles of where you sit, have paid professional assassins to dismember these children, have had them disemboweled, have had their heads severed from their bodies, have had them chemically burned, and had their bodies put back together again on a tray to ensure that no pieces of these children are left behind in their mothers. With respect, Honorable Representatives, Roe v. Wade is not a law. It is a decades-old, fallacious court opinion that is incontrovertibly refuted by the evidence of Scripture as well as all modern biological science. Courts don't make law according to the United States Constitution. Congress makes law, not the Supreme Court. Arizona has a law current, unchanged, and in effect today. Arizona Statute 13-3603. Abortion is illegal in our state. You have a moral duty before God, the people of Arizona, and according to the laws of Arizona, to uphold this law today. We are all deluded if we believe that we have to accept the murder of unborn children because of a fallacious court opinion from the 70s. It is unconstitutional, murderous, and lawless. Other states have recognized their state sovereignty over issues that are less bloody. Colorado, California, Arizona ignore federal laws about marijuana. Other states have created sanctuary cities for undocumented immigrants. Where's your courage, friends? You can interpose by creating a sanctuary city for innocent unborn human beings today. You have delegated power of judgment and legislation, honorable representatives. I call upon you to wield it courageously and wisely. There is another one with the power of judgment and who is the source of law. If you ignore these pleas of justice, you will not escape his judgment. All of us have the appointed day where we'll stand before his court. Will you mark the calendar of history like those who said, I know it looks like a person, it's not a person, it's a black man? Will you be marked like those who said, I know it looks like a person, it's not a person, it's a Jew? This we all know is wicked. It's a wicked mindset. So is the idea that we can tear small human beings into pieces. There is hope. 2,000 years ago, God became a man, lived a righteous and sinless life, died in the place of his people, and rose again. He has all authority today over you. He calls for your obedience, and there is salvation as a gift through faith in him. I pray you find it, you turn to him for life, and that you grant these fatherless children the opportunity for the same.
Luke Pearson. This is the last card we will have at this time. At the end of the meeting, we will reserve time to hear the rest of the cards that have been submitted.
Good afternoon, Honorable Phoenix City Council. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to you today. As a reminder, my name is Reverend Luke Pearson. I am the discipleship pastor at Apologia Church in Mesa. I am incredibly grateful for you allowing me to have 3 minutes of your time. The last time I was here was an important day for the city of Phoenix and a big day for the Suns. I reminded you that I am speaking that day. I reminded that I'm speaking on behalf of the 40 Arizona sons and daughters being murdered in their mother's wombs every single day. Every major Phoenix news station was here, even ESPN. I come here as often as I can to remind you of your responsibility before God to defend the lives of your preborn neighbors. But today I want to also speak to the news reporters or media that's here in attendance. I was saddened to learn that day that Fox 10 News had a report about a man that spoke just after me, but had nothing to say about my comments. This man shot one of your fellow councilwomen in 1997 and served 12 years in jail for attempted murder. It was important for them to highlight this man, an attempted murderer, and rightfully so. But my question for the reporters or media that is here today, why aren't you reporting on the men and women in this state who openly murder children every single day? The paid assassins that operate in plain sight without any repercussions. Contrary to popular belief, these so-called doctors aren't even legally murdering these innocent children. According to Arizona Revised Statute 13-3603, abortion is premeditated murder. Roe v. Wade is not a law. Councilmen and women, why are you doing nothing to stop the Holocaust and uphold the law? Reporters or media that are here today, why aren't you reporting the news? To both of you, why are you ignoring the truth? Do you have no concern for the lives and well-being of your preborn neighbors? You can bury your heads in the sand, act like your hands are tied, and attempt to ignore the bloodshed all you want, but the truth is that you will stand and you will be held accountable to God. He knows, and in your heart of hearts, so do you. You may very well be able to run from his judgment in this life, but at some point, you will face his wrath. This is not a joke, and not something I recommend you take lightly. I am pleading with all of you to do the right thing. Magistrates, you are God's avengers of wrath. Please uphold the law and punish these murderous evildoers. Reporters, your job is to report the news, the real news, not the fake news. By failing to report these plain view murders, you are also complicit before God, your Creator. Please be courageous and do your job. Thank you once again for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please visit endabortionnow.com. To God alone be the glory.
Thank you. Will the clerk please read the 24-hour paragraph?
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances number G6525, 6534, and 6558 through 6560, S45376 through 45412, and resolutions 21696 and 21719 through 21721.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Waring, did you have an opportunity to review the minutes of November 14th, 2018?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion on boards and commissions. I'd like to approve the mayor and city council boards and commission nominations as revised, except for Carlos Ortega for the Levine Village Planning Committee. I believe we need a separate vote on that. And I'd like to continue the names Emilio Gaynor and John Wilczek.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
What are the reasons for continuing those two individuals?
I need to review their applications. There were some questions.
What are the questions?
They had to do with residency, and the other had to do with a lawsuit.
So, Mayor, is that a new norm that we ask every board and volunteer that's on our commissions if they're a resident, or that if there's any lawsuits? I've never heard of that
We
before.
do ask about residency.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
Mayor, I have a question for, is Emilio is Emilio here?
No,
He's not here?
no.
He's standing right there in the back.
Oh, he is here.
Emilio, may I ask Emilio a question then?
I don't have a second on that motion.
Second.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Emilio, can you come up? Right?
Mayor, I'd like to put a substitute motion out to put out the full boards and commissions as posted
Okay.
for a vote, with taking only Carlos Ortega out.
And I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay.
No.
You want to ask your question first
No,
before I
absolutely.
take the vote?
So, Emilio, one of the things I just heard right now is that people are questioning your residency. So first of all, are you a U.S. citizen, in case that's a question?
So I'll state my name and address for the record. Emilio Gaynor, 3519 West Selden Lane, Phoenix, Arizona, 85051. Mayor, Councilman. So I live there.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, I am a U.S.
Do you
citizen.
live in the city of Phoenix?
Yes, I do.
And are you involved in a lawsuit right now?
Not that I know of. I'm not aware of any lawsuits, no. When I served on the Board of Adjustments, there were lawsuits that were filed to the Board of Adjustments, but as far as I know, I'm not involved in any lawsuit right now.
And how many years do you sit on the Board of Adjustments?
I served almost 3 complete terms, even though a couple of times I asked the mayor to allow me to serve on another board. Mayor Stanton asked me to stay on that board because apparently he was satisfied with my service.
And Emilio, have you lived in the city of Phoenix during those 11 years serving on that board?
Absolutely.
And was it ever questioned that you lived outside the city of Phoenix?
There could be questions due to family matters where there are personal reasons where their family may live in another location, but no, my residence has been there.
All right. Thank you for answering those questions. So,
Thank
Mayor,
you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I don't know if anybody else. I feel very comfortable. Emilio served. I've known Emilio personally through the Sister Cities program, especially working with Hermosillo, our sister cities. He's been on some missions with our city staff and representing Chicanos por la Causa, a Hispanic organization that advocates and works for workforce housing, low-income housing, social services for the city of Phoenix, and they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. So a great organization that Emilio works for, and also served as the chairperson for our sister cities for I don't know how many years, and that's how I personally know him, through that interchange. So with that, that's the reason why I've appointed Emilio, because I like to see more diversity, especially on the planning and zoning, seeing that he does represent a Hispanic organization, seeing that we have 40% Hispanics in the city of Phoenix. That diversity on that committee would serve the city well and have great representation for our city.
Okay, that's good.
Chris,
Councilwoman Pastor?
I have a question regarding the Board of Adjustments. In the Board of Adjustments, are there lawsuits that include the members that are sitting on the Board of Adjustments?
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, the answer is yes, that in their official capacity as Board of Adjustment members, there are lawsuits filed. Those are variances and use permits that you hear about, and when those go to the Board of Adjustment, ultimately, if someone disagrees with those, then they file a complaint in Superior Court, and then at that time, sometimes they are named as individuals serving in their capacity as Board of Adjustment members in lawsuits.
So are there ongoing cases currently? Because there was a switch in the Board of Adjustments, and I'm just wanting to know if there are ongoing cases at this moment.
So, Mayor, members of council, there is a case that Mr. Gaynor was a part of the board before he stepped down that is still involved in litigation at 16th Street in Glendale.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question on that one.
Well, I have Councilman DeCiccio, then you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, but the Board of Adjustment is under constant lawsuit threat. I mean, every time that there's a decision, there's always a chance of a lawsuit, correct?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, that's correct.
It's just the controversial nature of the Board of Adjustment. So I don't know if Thelda Adams is here or not. Thelda, could I ask her to come down and speak, because she was one of the individuals. Now, I want to make this very clear. Emilio and Thelda and others that were booted off at one point, we're not even philosophically aligned, I don't think, Thelda, are we?
What's your philosophy?
Conservative. But it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is when we start going down this path of politicizing appointments, I think we go down a really bad path here. Now, in respect to Emilio Gaynor and others, he answered the question. We've looked at it, whether or not he's a resident. That was resolved. That's done. The fact of the matter is he personally being charged on anything? No, on those Board of Adjustments. The Board of Adjustment on a continual basis is under threat of lawsuit constantly, because they're a very controversial board on their own. So the fact of the matter is, I'm concerned about the path we're heading down. If you guys want me to start investigating everybody, I'll do it. I don't mind. I'll turn Sam off onto it, and it'll be ugly. But what I'm trying to say is I really don't want to go down this path here.
You've gone down the path.
He has
Thank
the
you.
floor.
But Thelda, may I, hold on, I did ask her to come up if you don't mind. I mean, tell us a little bit about your tenure that you served on the Board of Adjustment, how effective you were. My heart goes out to you. You were a volunteer. Were you ever, you never got paid for volunteer work. And what happened back then, I think, was just morally reprehensible to you and other members of the board. And you were constantly slandered. Nothing came of it, constantly, just because of decisions you were made. Because as a fact of the matter, and I'm kind of leading on a little bit too, is the fact of the matter is that every decision you make is controversial. It would not come to you if it wasn't appealed. So if you could just describe a little bit about your history here, what you've done. I think people need to see other members of this board that were just brutally attacked for no reason.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman DeCiccio. I'm glad I came today. I didn't come to the prior hearing because I didn't think it was an issue. I certainly didn't think I would be removed from the Board of Adjustment without any notice from Mayor Stanton or anyone at the City of Phoenix. My name is Thelda Adams. My address is 2 North Central Avenue, Suite 1913, Phoenix, Arizona 85004. I was appointed to the Board of Adjustment by then Mayor Stanton. I served on the Board of Adjustment for a little bit over one term. I was appointed the chair of the Board of Adjustment by my peers. The Board of Adjustment is the appellate board for the Planning and Zoning Committee. We hear the grittiest cases as it relates to economic development and urban development and planning happening in the city. We hear everything that happens, legally within the sex industry. We hear billboard cases, all of the medical marijuana cases. We get reams of paper in binders each week, and we spend hours going through vetting that information. I'm a licensed attorney in this city, and I'm very proud to be. My currency is my reputation and my integrity. And so, on the day before a very controversial agenda with many medical marijuana cases under review, we were sent notice myself, Emilio Gaynor, Yvonne Hunter, also a licensed attorney, licensed under the Arizona State Bar. We get paid $0. We come at 12 noon. Sometimes we leave here after 6 o'clock. We pay for our own parking. We're serving on a volunteer board to make this city better. And in every issue, you have high-profile zoning lawyers, you got neighborhood associations. It is heated, it is gritty, and it's selfless. It is true public service. And anyone serving on behalf of this board, whether it's the Board of Adjustment or the Planning and Zoning, that receives a mayoral appointment should be given the dignity if there is some issue. And they're removed all of a sudden, a quorum, right? 3 of us were removed. 1 was given the opportunity to leave. The board is 7 members, 4 people, Greg Stanton, then congressional candidate Greg Stanton, removed on a single day the night before. And we received notice by a form-based email. No, thank you for your service. No, we have concerns regarding your service. Nothing. And we've not had the opportunity. I'm not a part of this litigation, and I think to Councilwoman Stark's point, I think she's speaking about a different litigation, right? The board itself is sued on a regular basis. The city is sued on a regular basis, but board members aren't deposed. We don't go to the hearings where city council manages that, or the city attorney manages that. We get reports back when there's appeals to the Superior Court because from a legal perspective, that's the natural next path. You go to Planning and Zoning, you disagree with the result, you appeal to the Board of Adjustment, you disagree with the result, you go file a lawsuit in Superior Court. That's the linear path of how it works. But the board itself, myself named as a plaintiff or as a defendant, no, I'm not a plaintiff in a litigation, neither is Emilio. And our reputations are harmed here. And it is slanderous for people to come to this board and go, oh, there's a lawsuit. What is the case? What jurisdiction is it in?
Thank you very much for coming today. And, thank
and so
you for
you're
all the
here
service.
supporting Amelia Gaynor, correct?
Yes.
And
yes, I am.
And Mayor, it's an opportunity to clear up this issue that occurred, and this continuous attack of voluntary citizens is just something I've just never experienced. You just don't go after a citizen member. You don't, as a volunteer. And I want to thank you for your service. I don't think you've ever been thanked. I think I may have done that privately to you, but publicly, I want to thank you for your service, and I'm sorry for what occurred.
And I appreciate that, Mr. DeCiccio. And I would just say to the dais, you know, I think there's a real issue here as it relates to precedents, when there's deviations happening as it relates, whether it's Emilio Gaynor, when you begin to disrupt the process without factual data, without real information, on the basis of this air of suspicion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming down and for talking and telling us about your experience.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Mendoza?
May I ask a question to her, please?
You almost got away.
I'm going to get my steps in.
Sorry, just be real quick. You mentioned that you served with Mr. Gaynor on the Board of Adjustment. Can you speak about his character?
Yes, I think Emilio is an integral person. I did not know Mr. Gaynor prior to serving on the board. I served with him and several other excellent individuals. We don't collaborate as it relates to our work on the board. It's done individually, and the conversation that you hear and the discussion that you hear on the dais is really when you begin to understand like how, where areas of agreement are, where there might be an opportunity to amend a petition or find a solution that's amenable to both parties, or simply rule against. And Emilio was, he was timely. He was very helpful. He had been a former chair before. He helped me in my chairship, and I am grateful as it relates to that. He knows quite a bit about land use and zoning. He cares deeply about this city, and I don't think that it is reasonable at all that a person should have to fight to volunteer on a board.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I do have one more card. Caitlin Mitchell.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Caitlin Mitchell, and I'm happy to follow this, actually, because I'm here to implore you to not remove me from the South Central Transit-Oriented Development Steering Committee. If you look on page 17 of your agenda, I have been nominated, I have been removed, and another individual has been nominated to replace me. Much like the person who spoke before me, I was not given notice that I am being removed today. I was also not given cause as to why I am being removed today. I was appointed by Mayor Stanton last year to serve a 3-year term. I have done nothing to merit my removal. I have attended every meeting. I'm an active participant. I live along the light rail. I am an advocate for alternative forms of transportation. I'm excited by the opportunity to serve the city on a public board. And as the last individual just said, I shouldn't have to be here to fight for my opportunity to serve on a public board. I have done nothing to merit my removal. The only reason why I am being removed today is because I actively participated in a political movement which has nominated me to get kicked off. And as Councilman Denise just said, these boards should not be political. These boards should be about community members and community members representing what's important to them. And alternative forms of transportation are important to me. I'm happy to answer questions. I am not intending to embarrass any one individual by being here, but I respectfully request that please do not remove me from this board. I have done nothing to merit my removal, and I should be entitled to serve the rest of my term out. Thank you.
Which board? Which board did you say? I'm sorry.
South Central Transit Orientation. South Central.
South Central Transit-Oriented Development Steering Committee.
Mayor, may I clear it up for you?
Yes, you may, please.
Alan, so Ms. Mitchell was sitting on the board representing Central City, right?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, that is correct.
And does she sit on Central City anymore?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, no, she does not.
And the reason that she was removed because she does not represent Central City, and now we have a member representing Central City, right?
So, Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, on the agenda as part of the boards and commissions packet is a request from the mayor to appoint someone else representing the Central City Village Planning Committee on the Central City South TOD Steering Committee. You'll recall, all members of the body, when we made the appointments to the South Central TOD Steering Committee, we made them based upon representing different stakeholder interest groups. And so there's a representative from, for example, the South Mountain Village Planning Committee, Central City Village Planning Committee. There's representatives from schools, property owners, residents in the area. So it was a stakeholder-based group that was put together and ultimately appointed by the mayor and council. As part of that, Ms. Mitchell was appointed because she was then on the Central City Village Planning Committee to be the Central City Village representative. However, about a month ago, she was removed from the Central City Village Planning Committee and replaced, and therefore the mayor now is making a new appointment of another Central City Village Planning Committee member to replace her for the South Central Steering Committee.
Right, I understand. She's now ineligible because she's no longer serving on that board, so therefore she can't represent that board. I do apologize that that wasn't explained and
Mayor, may I?
Received information on it.
There are additional seats available on the committee, and I could still serve on the committee, just not as a representative of the Central City Village Planning Committee.
Well, that would take a new appointment. And
Mayor, I'm willing to look into that.
Okay.
Maybe for the next meeting, we can sit down and discuss that.
So we will need a new application, and we can process that. And if you work with Councilman Nowakowski, we can have it on our next agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further comment?
Oh, no.
Pardon me?
Got a secondary motion.
Right.
Well,
It's a substitute motion to approve.
Mayor, but before that, we vote on that, I'd like some clarification really quick. Alan, during the 11 years as Emilio Gaynor sat on the Board of Adjustment, was there any complaints, reprimands against his actions, his ethics on the board?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, the time that I staffed the board, I was not aware of any of those issues. There were other times that I directly did not serve the board, so I can't speak to any issues that prior directors may have had.
All righty. Thank you. And can I ask our legal counsel, have we received any reprimands or complaints regarding Emilio's presence on the Board of Adjustment during the 11 years?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, I am not aware of any.
And Mayor, because of all these answers have been answered, his residency, he actually lives in the city of Phoenix. He served 11 years on the Board of Adjustments. He's never had a reprimand or has ever been disciplined. And he also stated he's a U.S. citizen in case his citizenship is going to be questioned also, and that that's why I'll be supporting this secondary motion.
Okay. Councilman DeCiccio, the secondary motion was to approve boards and commissions nominated by the mayor and council except for Carlos Ortega. That's correct. Okay. And we have a second.
I have a question.
Okay.
I don't have my, the second person, I think it's historic preservation. I don't have it in front of me.
Historic preservation.
Okay. The second person, my understanding is that he's suing the city. There's several lawsuits against us dealing with historic preservation.
Mayor, members of council, him and his firm are involved in at least one lawsuit against the city. I don't know that it has anything to do with historic preservation, but it is a lawsuit against the city.
I will tell you, Councilwoman, I'm a strong believer that the sins of the father do not apply to the child. And I know that his father has been involved in some lawsuits, but as my understanding, as I have been told, that is his father. It is not him that's been actively involved in those lawsuits.
So are we clear on that? I mean, is that the father? Is that the son? Who is it? The other dynamic is, I believe at one point, we were going to get disposed, and it was this person. So I need to get clarity.
Mayor, Councilwoman Pastor, the information I have is that Jack Willencheck is the same as John Willencheck. And John Willencheck is listed as an attorney of record in a legal challenge against the city over the Garfield lots, the gift case, gift clause. John D. Willencheck is who is the attorney of counsel. If that is the same person, then it is the same. It's the subject is the case against the sale of the Garfield lots for that redevelopment. It's a gift clause challenge.
So, okay.
Mayor, just a quick comment, though, and I'll be done. People do have a right to protest their government, and whether it's through a lawsuit, protesting, or whatever, they have a right to be here. They have a right to challenge our decisions. I don't believe that he was involved in that case, but it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is his father does challenge the city of Phoenix, and that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, you want challenges. You want to be able to hear the other side. You don't want a groupthink occur. And I've supported individuals that I have philosophically not even come close to supporting that have challenged the city on a continual basis, whether it's by protest or other means, just because I believe you do need both sides at the table listening to what other people are saying. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to vet out information, and you're only going to hear one side. So I've just not heard that challenge before, or the fact that anyone's challenging us. I think that we should be challenged, and we should have individuals question our decisions, and I think that's a good thing long-term for the city. Thank you, Mayor.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Nobody disagrees with that. But I think when 3 people that were sitting up here are being disposed in the sense of stuff that's not, and I'm willing to do it, but it got withdrawn, and there are a number of items that are being questioned. So I think it's really true. It's about integrity and ethics and doing necessarily the right thing to make sure we make the right decision. So.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call for roll call.
DeCiccio?
Yes.
Guevara?
No.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski?
Mayor, I'd like to explain my vote. I just want to make it very clear on the record. I don't know who Chuck or William is. Just on the record, there's been stuff on Facebook and social media saying that he was my attorney or I know this individual. I do not know this individual. And it'll be a yes, Mayor.
Pastor?
I have one question. I'm sorry. Is there an active AG investigation going on? I don't know who I ask it to.
City Attorney, do you know?
Mayor, Councilman Pastor, I do not know, and they would not contact us necessarily unless they were asking us to assist. I personally do not have any knowledge of that.
Okay.
Pastor?
Do we know? I'm waiting for this dialogue.
We are not aware of an AG investigation.
At this, I'm a no.
Stark?
No.
Waring? Yes. Williams?
Yes. That's 5-3. Okay, item pass. Do we have people here to be sworn in? Oh, we have one more person to approve. Carlos Ortega? We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to approve Carlos Ortega for the Levine Village Planning Committee, noting Councilman Nowakowski's potential conflict.
Correct.
And I don't agree with him philosophically either, just so you know. He challenges, he and his family challenge our city.
We have a second. Roll call.
DeCiccio?
Anybody here does agree with Sal? I'm just wondering, you know.
Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski? Pastor?
Oh, yes.
Stark? Waring? Williams?
Yes. Hey, if we have people to be sworn in, if you could come right. Raise your right hand, and you have you don't have it? Okay. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of, and then state your office. Impartially, yep. Duties of the office of, according to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations, you are official.
Mayor, could I give a shout out to the Perchettes there on the Ahwatukee Village? Elena, Keith, they own one of the better and larger physical sports therapy places. Keith Perchette and Elena, they own it, and they're great business people, great community members. Thank you for everything you do.
I'm kidding. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Thanks for being crazy enough to do it. I don't know. Thanks. Congratulations.
Oh my gosh, it's like this every day.
Yeah, make it so. Make it so.
Back here. Say.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Why don't you get a picture with her?
Oh, no, I can.
Okay, we are going to continue for liquor licenses. Vice Mayor, do you have a motion?
78.
Oh, that's right. We have to do item 78 first before we can do the liquor license.
Mayor, I make a motion to suspend the rules and take item 78 out of order so that it can be heard before liquor license item number 15 that accompanies it.
Do I have a second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 7. Right.
Now we're ready for item 78, correct? Okay. I move item 78.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Ready for liquor licenses,
We
Mayor?
are ready for liquor licenses.
Motion to approve items 3 through 18, except items 12 and item 18.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Did you want to make the motion on item 12?
So I'm going to explain why, if I
Okay.
can't do so at this moment. So if anyone is familiar with this specific intersection at 43rd Avenue and Bethany Home, you can currently buy alcohol at 3 of the 4 corners. 2 of those 3 corners are also currently dollar stores. The other corner contains a title loan store. Next to that title loan store is another title loan store. And until recently, next to that title loan store was a bar. Across Bethany Home from that bar, there used to be another title loan store, which is no longer there because of this proposed location for this Series 10 liquor license. I don't point this out to be disparaging in any way towards these businesses or the people who operate them, which is perfectly legal to operate. I point it out to say that I understand the concerns we've heard from neighbors. The reason things come to the city council before going to the state board is to ensure that local and neighborhood concerns are considered. And we clearly have some concerns here, so with that, I won't be supporting this application.
Okay, the applicant is here. Is it Mycott? I can't read the last name. M-I-N Menthu? Did you want to speak? Did you come up to the microphone then? Do you want to tell us about your application, why you want to do this?
Yeah, because there's a location have my neighborhoods and my family, a lot of people around there. So I will be working with the 7-Eleven. I have to own the 7-Eleven store too. I have the experience. That's why I want to shoot for that location.
Okay. Did you want to make any further comments? No. You do have 3 cards opposed. That's all the questions we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to hear from the ones that are opposed? Councilwoman? Did you want to hear from the 3 cards that are opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Lori Fitzhugh-Sevilla. And then Ricardo Rowan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Laurie Fitzhugh. I'm here today representing the Sevilla Neighborhood Association, P.O. Box 11153, Phoenix, Arizona 85061-1153. This location is within the boundaries of the Sevilla Neighborhood Association. We organized and got registered with the city in September of 1994. Over time, I'm sure many of you on the council know that our organization really consciously reviews liquor license locations. For the last 14 years, this address location has been a Tio Rico title loan, a very quiet operation. You would not see more than 2 or 3 vehicles there at the same time, low traffic pattern. I am worried about, and we discussed this at our February organization meeting, oversaturation. We are close to the boundary with Glendale. It's right there, a couple of commercial lots away. And that creates a challenge when we are looking at adverse behaviors in our community. Quite frankly, the bad guys in Phoenix go do their nasty deeds in Glendale, and the bad guys in Glendale hop over and do it in Phoenix. And they are taking advantage of a weak communication process, which fortunately, very recently, there's been efforts to an investment in creating a good communication process between the Phoenix Police Department and officers and their peers in Glendale. And we're very excited about that. But the truth is, for many decades, yahoos have taken advantage of 43rd Avenue. And when we analyzed this, we went out as far as 2 miles, not just a mile. The mile is in the statute for who can be aggrieved, but we want to look at really the access to liquor license locations. We analyzed 5 zip codes, and we looked at Series 10, which is beer and wine store, Series 7, which is a liquor store, Series 12, which are restaurants. We looked at Series 6, bars, and Series 7s. And the reason why was we wanted to look at anything that had packaged goods to go, where I could go purchase alcohol and take it with me out into the community.
Thank you. I need you to wrap up, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So we found within our 2 miles, well, first of all, our numbers are different than what is in the staff report. It's off just by a little bit, but I used the numbers from the Arizona Department of Liquor valid licenses. And so within a mile, there's 18 liquor license locations of the types I've described. It goes out, but within 2 miles, there's 70 out of those zip codes of a total of 194 are within 2 miles. We are more than amply served, and we think an additional new liquor license will not be in the substantial best interest and meet the needs of the community.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
The motion is to deny. I don't think anyone has any questions. Thank you. We have 2 more cards. Jose Valdez and Ricardo Rowan the motion is to deny this. Did you want to affirm? All right. Hearing no response. We have a second, correct? To deny this? Well, I'll second it. Roll call.
DeCiccio? Yes. Guevara? Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski?
I just want to explain my vote. I'll be supporting the vote. Normally, when it's a council member's district, we support that individual. I don't know your business or anything, but I'm supporting one of my colleagues on her decision for her district, and that's a yes.
Pastor?
Yes.
Stark? Yes. Waring?
Aye.
Williams?
Yes.
I said yes. I said yes.
I know, we all said yes. It was unanimous. Item 18.
Okay, great. All right. Move to approve item 18.
Second.
Actually, I am not supporting this because they promised me they wouldn't pursue another permit until our language was completed, and we're very close to having the language completed, so I'm not supporting this. So, roll call.
DeCiccio?
Yes.
Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski?
Yes.
Pastor?
Yeah.
Stark? Waring?
Yes.
Williams?
No. Okay, brings us to
31?
32, I believe. It's not on the board.
Okay. All right, Mary, you ready for the omnibus?
Yes.
All right. Motion to approve items 19 through 100, except the following: 32, 51, 52, 90, 91, 98, 99, and 100. Items 64, 96, and 97 have been withdrawn.
Any comment?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
DeCiccio?
Yes.
Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski?
Yes.
Pastor?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
Waring?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes. Unanimous. Brings us to item.
Move item number 32.
Second.
Flow in the box. Roll call cards, and it takes them time to get up, give them a little extra time.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
DeCiccio? Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski? Pastor?
Yes.
Stark? Waring?
No.
Williams?
Yes. So it'd be 7-1. Item 51, I believe, is next.
Move item 51.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
DeCiccio? Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski? Pastor?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
Waring?
No.
Williams?
Yes, 7-1. I believe that takes them to item 52.
Move item 52, please.
Second.
Roll call.
DeCiccio?
Just to be clear, 52, correct? Is
Yes.
that the number? Yeah. Yes.
Guevara? Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski? Pastor?
Yes.
Stark?
Yes.
Waring?
No.
Williams?
Williams, yes, I believe that's 7-1. The next one is item 90.
Move to approve item 90.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
I do have cards in favor. Did you still wish to speak? It's Kyle Foxcroft, Pam Beasley, and Joanne Mayback. Did you want to speak? The motion's in favor.
I just wanted to speak on behalf of the Oakland Neighborhood Association that we do support this. We think that it is a good street that needs this investment, and the lots are currently vacant, so we do support this.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hearing none, a roll call.
DeCiccio? Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski?
Yes.
Pastor? Stark? Waring?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes, unanimous.
Move to approve item 91.
Item
Second.
9. We have a motion and a second. In favor is same, Pam Beasley, Joanne Mayback, and Kyle Foxcroft. Did you wish to speak? Okay, roll call.
DeCiccio? Guevara?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Nowakowski? Pastor?
Yes.
Stark? Waring?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes, unanimous. It brings us to 98.
I'm not anywhere. No.
These are what?
So, Mayor,
Yeah. Staff, would you give us a report?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Item 98 is a requested rezoning from P1 surface parking lot to R5 HR for a 2.94 acre site for a multifamily high-rise condominium residential development. Staff does recommend denial as filed and approval of just R5 zoning subject to stipulations. The R5 zoning would allow a maximum height of 48 feet under that staff recommendation. Staff does recommend that if the R5 HR is approved, that there would be a stipulation of 60 feet if that was where the council goes with this particular application. The subject site is outlined here. The larger parking lot area of the Phoenix Country Club is in green. The subject site is down here in the immediate corner of the proposed rezoning request. There shows the surrounding zoning for this particular area. You have some C1 commercial around the immediate intersection. Then you have P1 for the surface parking lot. You have the actual Phoenix Country Club buildings themselves in the R5 area, and then single-family residential around further off from that intersection. This is the proposed conceptual site plan that shows the existing parking lot area for the country club and the proposed condominium development on the corner down here. This is their proposed elevations and conceptual renderings that they have for the project. In this case, the applicant started out with a discussion about 225 feet of height with neighbors and folks, came in, actually filed the application for 164 feet of height. The Planning Commission did recommend approval at 140 feet of height for this particular project. The request was recommended for denial by the Encanto Village Planning Committee on a 13-2 vote. And with that, staff is happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? I will open the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting us be here today. So how much time do you?
15 minutes.
Okay, we can do it easily within that. Thank you, Mayor Williams and City Council members, for the opportunity to address you today. My name is John Graham, and I'm the CEO of Sunbelt Holdings, and I office at 6720 North Scottsdale Road in Scottsdale. Phoenix Country Club was founded in 1899. I have been a member through my family since 1958. The club and the area around it have morphed over the decades as it adopts to an ever-changing and growing city. As part of that evolution, Phoenix Country Club approached me several years ago about building a for-sale residential development in the parking lot. Importantly, there will be no demolition to do this project. There will be no city incentives. It's one that is de novo development. What we felt was really needed for the country club as part of its metamorphosis was for sale housing, luxury housing that could really change the dynamics of the club and allow it to adapt to the changing environment of downtown Phoenix. Sunbelt has been in business for over 36 years. We do not develop projects, we develop communities. And that's important, that although this is a building, we're looking at a much broader area that we'd like to have a positive impact on. We're a placemaker, and we intend to do that here. I know that no project that we do is popular or supported by everyone. We have very substantial numbers of supporters, and the people in red, they're easier to find, but if our people just put your hand up just so you can see those that you're supporting. And then others that have turned in letters, petitions, and other ways to support us. Excuse me. We want to preserve and enhance the current neighborhoods. That's always been our mantra, no matter where we are. And I'll change to the next slide. So this is the project team, including the developers on top, Larry Lazarus firm in the middle, and then Davis Architects is the architect that we've done a lot of stuff with, and I'll reference in just a second. And so the whole team has been together doing projects all over the valley for a number of years. Next slide. So just as an example of stuff we've done, we know how to do complex and bigger projects. We developed a 2.1 million square foot State Farm facility in Tempe. Our architect for that project was Davis Architects, the same architect that we're using on this project. We also developed Portland on the Park, which is this development on Hance Park. We also did that one with Davis Architects, and you probably can't read the line below it, but we're proposing this to be, the filing was 164 feet. We've subsequently reduced that to 144 feet, so it's actually about 20 feet less than what you're looking at up there. Among the number of projects that we've developed in the time that I've had the company, we've done some very large and what I consider transformational projects that started with skeptics and ended up being changing areas, I think, in a positive way. A couple of good examples would be the Phoenix Gateway Center, the 80 acres at 44th Street in Van Buren, which was a very, very dilapidated, rundown area, and today, 35 years later, is a very thriving commercial core. Another one would be kind of a different spin on that is the Legacy Golf Resort that we did at 32nd Street and Baseline. It's a golf course, resort, and residential, and again, it in our minds really transformed that whole South Phoenix area in a very positive way, and that was a little over 20 years ago. So let me go to the first rendering. So this is a better rendered site plan than the one that Alan showed earlier, but what I really want to point out here is that we're basically doing everything that you see in white, including a little bit more. So in addition to the building on the corner, we're going to be redeveloping both parking lots. That'll include regrading the parking lots, changing out the fences there and moving it back away from the streets. Right now, and you'll see in another picture that it's a broken down wrought iron fence, so we replace it with a view fence because we want people to see inside. And we'll do lots of bosque trees in the parking lot as well as LED lighting and other landscaping to enhance the corner. As I said to somebody earlier today, that you can right now count the trees in that parking lot on a single hand. And as you can see in this, that there will be a proliferation of trees to create the bosque of trees as you see in the neighborhoods around it. Let me quickly dive into our project. We know that the issue here is height, and we will address that. So again, I want to reiterate this. These are different than we had at the Planning Commission because those were 164 feet. These are 144 feet. So they've been adjusted to that height. So this is looking to the northeast through the corner of 7th Street and Thomas. And again, you can see that there will be a significant amount of trees on a great separated sidewalk from the back of curb with trees on both sides of the sidewalk. I also would like to say, from my perception, is a lot of this has been, this is about a tower or a high rise. And then we've seen a lot recently that's 175 feet. I just I admire our opponents very much so, but I just want to make sure we're, at least in our vernacular, we're on the same page. So we don't think it's a high rise, we don't think it's a tower, and it's not 175 feet, it's 144 feet. So we're even 31 feet below that as we speak. When we first talked to the city, we actually came in with 225 feet, and even we thought that that was something that was unnecessary and wrong for the area. Crystal Point, which is at Osborne and just east of 7th Street, is 225 feet, just again for scale. But we thought that that was wrong, so we did the 164 feet application. As we say, subsequent to that, we've dropped it to 144 feet. The other things, and once you click through a couple more. So this is looking to the northeast again from, that would be Thomas on your right, 7th Street on your left, and the building in the back. Next. So there's an amenity deck on the second level, and this shows a large pool. That's what people ask us why we need such a big pool. The answer is I don't think we do. But it's going to be a very nice amenity deck, very heavily landscaped, which you'll be able to see from the street, in addition to the landscaping on the ground level. Next. So something I want to just reiterate before I move on to this is that our project is a $75 million project that we'll be paying over $1 million a year in property taxes, so obviously benefiting the school districts as well as other services for the area, and especially with the school district, we think there will be little to no kids in the building, so that I think we're adding a lot to the school system without burdening it with enrolling kids. So this is the corner of 7th Street and Thomas. So again, Thomas on the right, 7th Street on the left. And you know, I know nobody's really proud of this at this point, but that fence is jammed right up against the back of the sidewalk. And as you can see, there's absolutely no trees in the parking lot. So we think what we're talking about doing here would be a huge change in a positive way to the intersection. Next. So I took this just as an example. This is at Alt Midtown, which is at 3rd Street and Thomas, so just down the street. And this is how the more traditional development would be built, which is basically, and I think there's an appropriate place to put this, and I'm not trying to be negative to this project, but this is what I think we're being encouraged to consider at Phoenix Country Club, which is to do a higher density wood frame construction that would be, I think, create a really tough and unhelpful street presence. This would also, if you did this, it would be more units, more people, more density than what we're proposing. And again, we just think is inappropriate there. And I certainly would not do this personally as an alternative. I just want to make sure people know that too. So next. So this is the type of thing we can get. And this is not final design by any stretch, but we really just want to show that we think we can do some really creative and fun stuff at the intersection to make it really people-friendly, as well as a much greater improvement than the kind of the bleak parking lot that's there today. Next. I just put this in here because we're doing this a lot with projects now, but between glass and LED lighting and other fun materials, we think we can really animate that ground floor to be a real happening place and really liven that intersection up. Next. So this is just a rendering of what we're proposing versus what's there. So this is so 6 feet of landscaping, a 6-foot sidewalk, 6 feet of landscaping, and actually that's our worst condition. In general, it's up to about 25 feet versus the fence that's absolutely right behind the sidewalk today. And then we'd have this double row of trees, so it would create a nice shaped canopy with the detached sidewalk. So a good chance of increasing the desirability and walkability of the area. Next. So this is we call it the opportunities in the transit-oriented development for Midtown. So that's kind of an eye chart, but that's, I'll blow it up and show you what really happens underneath it. So the next one. So if you see there, 3 of the 4 corners, and not including the country club, are identified as opportunity spots for redevelopment, and certainly they could use it. But you can see there's a lot of other buildings in the area. And what you can also see is nothing is shown for redevelopment in the neighborhoods. We like those neighborhoods. We want to help preserve them. We think it's great to have that type of lifestyle and housing option in the area, so that we celebrate that. Next. So this is the corner where there used to be a payday loan. So that's at the corner of 7th Street and Thomas, and that would be the northwest corner. Obviously vacant at this point. Next. Next, we have a developed corner. That's the Circle K. Not great, but you know, not too bad. But still, we could see that getting dressed up. Next corner. So that's the southeast corner, and that has a chain link fence around it, lots of graffiti, and currently nothing happening on it. What we do see is it's been purchased by somebody that I know well and has a broker, Greg Lang, that I know well, that is out marketing it to either tear it down and do a build-a-suit or to remodel it and take the gas pumps out. And that's what that says right there. Next. And this is just one rendition. That's actually a remodeled store of what's there. There's also another one that is a tear down and rebuild, but the idea is to make it a restaurant or some other kind of neighborhood convenience type operation. Next. And again, I won't go through these, but we've got literally hundreds of people that have said nice things about the development and what they think it'll do for the area, and these are representative, and there's one more after this. And we have a petition that we turned in with 310 signatures on it, support. Social media that we watched is, from our perspective, generally positive, and I know you'll hear you know, the other side of that or view of it, which again, we respect all parties in this debate. Next. No, sorry. So now I'm going to turn over to Larry Lazarus to talk quickly about planning principles, and then I'm going to jump back up to finish it off and then we'll go on to the rest of the people to present today. Thank you.
Mayor, how much more time do we have? Can I have, oh, there, duh. I'm going to take a little bit more time if I may, or you can cut me off and I'll try and pick up later on. I did send a letter to you all, and it went through some of these general plan principles. And so to the extent that I'm unable to address all of them, I would refer you to that letter. So I would like to talk about the general plan principles, because while the general plan, a lot of discussion has occurred that this does not meet the precepts of the general plan. While the general plan and the Midtown TOD policy plan are guides, and they're not specific code requirements, contrary to the opponent's assertion that this project doesn't meet those requirements. This is one of the few projects that I've been involved with where all of the core values of the general plan are being met. In fact, Mo Stein, who is here today, is chairman of the Plan Phoenix Leadership Committee, whose task it was to update the general plan, stated, and I quote, "This proposal supports the core values of the general plan and promotes the goals of the Midtown TOD plan." You see before you the general plan policy core values. And I want to take these, I might not be able to get through all of them, but I want to take some of the more important ones. The first one is to connect people and places. Under this value, the plan states, locate the land uses with the greatest height and the most intense uses within the village areas, centers, and corridors based upon the village character. The planning staff would like to prioritize high-rises on Central Avenue appropriately at 250 feet or higher, some as high as 500 feet. But there is room for mid-rises in these corridors, as has specifically been stated in the general plan. It states corridors, not one specific Central Avenue corridor. 7th Street is a corridor that connects major sources of trips all the way down to South Mountain and Baseline. 7th has major retail and restaurants emerging in this corridor and provides connections from Midtown to ASU to U of A campuses and the Bioscience campus. Thomas Road is also a major corridor and connects 2 of the Valley's major hospitals, Phoenix Children's Hospital and Dignity's St. Joe's and Barrows Medical Center. The largest employer in the state of Arizona has its corporate offices within walking distance at Thomas and Central, a few blocks away, not to mention Park Central and the New Creighton School of Medicine, also a few blocks away. High-rise is appropriate in these major corridors. One more sentence, and I'm not going to get to 2, 3, 4, or 5. And I would ask that you please, thank you.
Larry, you got 2 minutes.
I might get to 3 and 4. The plan also states, thank you very much, the plan also states vacant and undeveloped land in older cities should be developed and redeveloped. This project will activate an undeveloped parking lot at an important intersection with creating a high bar for surrounding deteriorating properties that you just seen. It will also create a walkable environment, much greater than you have seen on the slides before I began speaking. The second core value is to build a sustainable desert city. A sustainable desert city is one where we build up and not out, not promoting sprawl, but preserving our outlying areas in the desert. What we are suggesting is building up. One where we stabilize and preserve 100+ acres of green space, cooling down the heat island in the inner city. That is part of building a sustainable desert city. The third core value is strengthening our local economy by achieving This is achieved by facilitating high growth and high wage industries by promoting high-end living conditions and opportunities for professionals working in this particular area. For these jobs that of the type of development that we have surrounding it. Also, the development has been stated will create $75 million in construction costs over 2 years and will provide $1 million annually in tax dollars benefiting the local schools. It strengthens the local economy. It also celebrates our diverse opportunities.
Okay, Larry,
And it also helps downtown. And I will again ask that you read my correspondence to you, and I will stop at that point.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pastor, do you have a preference? Because otherwise we will be here 4 hours.
So I have 60 cards that oppose. On it, it says donate time to Robert Warnicki. If I donate all the time, we'd be here for an hour. And so, Robert, I think you can get to the point. Mayor, you suggest 10 minutes?
For the entire side or for one person? I'm not clear.
You need to give them more
Well,
time than that.
Well, I'm trying to figure this out, because donated time.
Yeah, but you need to give them more
Stacks of donated time for different people.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, each
Okay.
side have equal.
Yes.
So. Could you tell me how long that is?
Oh, it's very short.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And Mayor, may I just do something, make it even simple? We should just ask them how much time do they need and then go from there.
Right, because I have time dedicated to Robert Warnicki, and then I have another stack of group dedicated to another person, and then.
You have time donated to G. George, you have time donated.
No, what I'm trying to get at, that's,
Jeannie
we have to ask
Younger.
them how much time they
much
need to get the
time?
message across. It makes it a lot easier.
I don't know. I'm an attorney. I can go on for an hour. No,
Are you paid by the word or by the hour?
No, sadly, no one is paying me.
I'm just kidding.
I'll have you know that I believe I can do this and put up 5 or 7 minutes up there, and I'll do the best I can. I do know there's other people that follow me that would like to speak, and I would like you to hear from more than just an attorney. Although I got to tell you that Mr. Graham and Mr. Lazarus had me kind of spun up, so I've got some things to say. Should I begin now?
Okay, I will set this that 30 minutes for each side. And it's up to you to figure out who all your speakers are.
I'll go first, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right, everyone, Mayor and council members. My name is, as you probably know, is Robert Warnicki. I live at 506 East Catalina Drive, Phoenix, Arizona. On the screen up there is the tower site at the corner of 7th Street and Thomas. I'm the president of La Hacienda Historic District, which is shown just to the west. And then there's 2 other neighborhoods of single-family homes. You're wonderful. 2 single-family homes that are also adjacent to the project. And the thing this picture really shows, I think, is the 175 feet. Because, by the way, that's not a number I made up. If you look at page 15 of the narrative, that's what they asked for. So the 175-foot building is right there on the corner. And as you see, it's among mostly 1- and 2-story structures. It's inappropriate for the area. But I'm not alone. This is geolocated map of petition signers that is basically in the greater Phoenix area. I tried to cut down the map because I didn't think you cared about people in Chandler. Then that's a little closer in. Once again, you can see how the country club is the little green dot right in the middle, and it's surrounded by petition signers or people who wrote letters in red. And then even closer in, I'm a little colorblind, so I can't really see that, but that shows more clearly each red dot is a home where people live that are opposed to this project. The last time I counted, we were well over 700 people that had signed either ink or digital petitions, and so I'm not up here alone. As a matter of fact, we're all wearing red. The other part of this presentation is this short video that I don't know how to run. There it goes. Oh, I killed it. Well, now I really killed it. Can you fix it, please? You'd be wonderful if you could. You're wonderful anyway, but you'd be particularly wonderful if you could fix it. Okay, so anyway, there's a short video because we all think of 7th Street and Thomas, and some of us think of, hey, that is a really built-up area. But it's not. The video that is apparently not loading is from Google Earth, and it basically starts at around Virginia, looking north, and it takes a camera eye view going across, so you can see that as you go away from Central, the buildings go down like this until you get to the site of the project, and then it just jumps up among single-family homes, and then the video actually swoops in and swoops up, looking up the 170 feet. And I'll try it. There it goes. So that's from Central, and now it's going east, and it's going to go and go and go, and there's the project. You just passed passing my house in my neighborhood, and now it's going to go in and then up, because I wanted to give you a feel for this is a building that's out of place. This building belongs a half mile to the west on the Central Corridor. It does not belong on 7th Street and Thomas. And it fails to meet our urban planning goals. The Midtown TOD policy plan supports high-rise and density, but it supports it within a quarter mile of the light rail stations. This is a half a mile away. It's actually outside the Midtown TOD. If the Midtown TOD extended to the other side of 7th Street, where this is, it would be 56 feet. That would be the maximum height. So when he shows you the map and says, oh, it's just outside the TOD, 56 feet is what you get that far away. A word that he didn't use is another driving force of this. Showed you all the pictures of the bad buildings, the buildings that are unused. It's really an infill project. The infill incentive district east of 7th Street ends at Thomas. It would have allowed 60 feet, not 140 feet, not 175 feet, not 220 feet, 60 feet. This isn't in that infill district either. This isn't just me saying that it doesn't belong. The Midtown TOD says this type of development should be focused within a quarter mile of the light rail stations. That's $1 billion of public money. What we need to do to support that public money is to encourage the development dollars to go in close to the stations. This is a half mile away. The city staff report says 3 times that this does not comply with land use principles. That's not me talking, that's your city staff. City staff report says it's not a reasonable level of increase of intensity. The city staff report says it ignores policies designed to protect residential areas. It in no way furthers the certainty or character of the surrounding area. It is not appropriate. It goes on to say it is in conflict with the strategic policy framework. It is in conflict with the policies of the general plan. That's not me. That's the city staff telling us what they think. The city staff even called it spot zoning. But I want to talk about the general plan. They got up here and they said it conforms to the general plan. The general plan says on page 107, there is a level of certainty one expects to have and a quality of life one expects to maintain while living in a great city. The goals and policies that are outlined in the general plan were created so residents can have a reasonable expectation and a level of certainty while living in our great city. The general plan says buildings like this belong in the village core. This is outside the village core. The village core in this area ends at 3rd Street. Page 107 of the general plan also says when we create new development or redevelopment that is sensitive to the scale and character of the surrounding neighborhoods. The application's request for 175 feet or the 140 feet that he asked for today is not sensitive to the scale of our neighborhood. It's outside the scale of our neighborhood. the application relies on zoning from the 60s. He pointed to the Crystal Point project. The Crystal Point project didn't do any favors for the Witten neighborhood. More importantly, it was based on 1960s era zoning. And we have seen in Midtown what happens if you surround small neighborhoods or small blocks of homes with high-rise zoning. The perception is the neighborhood in the middle is going to go away. What happens is people quit putting money into those homes, they become rentals, and it becomes blight. And over decades, that takes that blight before it finally gets redeveloped. This cycle, that blight got redeveloped into Alta Midtown, and it's currently being redeveloped into Crescent Midtown. Both projects that I supported, because I do support redevelopment, but both of those projects were redeveloping properties that were blighted because they were bracketed by high-rises. If you allow a high-rise to my neighborhood's east, in addition to the high-rises where they belong on the west, you'll have bracketed my neighborhood, and my neighborhood will ultimately become blight. That's why I say, even though this is a pretty shiny building, height causes blight. And if you bracket my neighborhood, that's what's going to happen. We know it's possible for neighborhoods to survive having a high-rise on one side. We've seen it in Alvarado, we've seen it in Willow, we saw it in my neighborhood, see it in Witten, and we see it up on 24th Street in Camelback. But when you surround a neighborhood, that neighborhood dies. We've seen that near the Fellowship Towers from the 60s, Indian School and 3rd Street. We saw it where Crescent Midtown is going at 3rd Street and Earl, and we see it at 3rd Street and Thomas, where Alta Midtown is going in. All those neighborhoods were bracketed, and they died because of the perception. Don't do that to my neighborhood. I also want to talk about the zoning code they're using. Is it really high-rise, or is it really intermediate? Well, you know what? They're asking for high-rise zoning, and that's important because high-rise zoning is up to 250 feet, and they're saying that give us a stipulation for less. Stipulations can be removed. So why are they asking for high-rise zoning? Because later on they might remove that stipulation. The high-rise zoning they're asking for actually doesn't even apply to this area. If you read the ordinance, section 631, it says that high-rise height is intended to be a special district to allow greater building height and density within those few areas of the city that by their strategic location and intense land use generate exceptional amounts of activity of a commercial nature. Well, he showed you pictures of 3 corners that were either a parking lot or empty buildings. This is not a corner that generates exceptional activity of a commercial nature. The infill doesn't apply to provide extra height, and section 631 doesn't apply by its terms. It's outside the Midtown TOD, and they're asking you to break the general plan. They're asking you to break the general plan to give a temporary benefit of maybe the golf course will survive a little longer, but to do that, they're asking you to give them a permanent entitlement for high-rise zoning on that corner, and I ask you to tell them no. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Mayor?
come on, please.
Mayor? I just have a...
Councilman.
Mr. Warnicki? Mr. Warnicki. Oh, Mr. Warnicki. Yeah, I do, actually. I'm the guy that always asks questions, so that's okay. No, that's all good. You can call me Sal, it's fine.
I'll do my best.
So just a couple, and I know it's a land use case, and it's a case that we should always make determinations based on the use of itself, but there is another mitigating factor here, and that's the viability of the golf course. And the other part of it deals with the fact that the back part of that's in the county, so we may never see a zoning case if it ever comes that way on that. So how do you, I mean, is there any response at all? And because this is the other argument that's coming in to us from the members of the board on the Phoenix Country Club. They're looking for multiple ways to try to save their golf course, to save their thing. How do you reconcile that, or do you?
Oh, absolutely. An architect has submitted to, at least to Councilwoman Pastor, maybe to the entire council, a suggestion for the entire corner, rather than one part of their parking lot, the part, of course, that's the furthest away from everything they're doing, to redevelop the entire parking lot and to look at the entire corners as part of a plan for redevelopment. Instead, they're talking about one corner of, or 1 to 4 acres, depending on what part of their application you read, of their parking lot. And at the same point, they're not really telling us what it's going to take for the club to. I mean, I assume the club needs it to survive, but they really soft pedaled that. They're not coming in and saying, if we don't have, I haven't heard them say, if we don't have this, we don't survive. Now, maybe that's the truth, but that's not what they're really saying. And I would be interested to know, I used to be a member of the club, I grew up at the club, I would be interested in saving the club. I don't know that I'm interested in saving the club at the expense of my neighborhood, but until we can sit down with them and have a real conversation on what their needs are and what we can do with that corner, for them just to come in and stick a high-rise on it, that's not a good response. Like I said, they're asking for some kind of temporary benefit for us to continue having their private club that most of us can't use for a permanent entitlement for high-rise zoning on that corner. And there's so many unknowns there that that's not even a fair exchange. We don't know. We do know right now they have R5 zoning on some of their tennis courts. They could put, without even asking this council for anything at all, they could put a project of approximately the same volume on those tennis courts that don't get used a whole lot on Country Club Drive, I want to say east, and they would have better views of the golf course, and it would probably more seamlessly work within our city. Instead, they're offering a 15 to 20 foot high concrete wall to surround a parking podium that's designed to have a vertical cul-de-sac, funnel their people into their cars, and out into the streets.
I didn't know that about the tennis courts. R5, what's the height on that?
48
Alan?
feet.
48? Oh.
I'm not a zoning attorney, but I know a lot of stuff.
You know it. You know your case. And then, so the other question I would have then is, not even a question, more of a statement along the lines. I just wanted to make sure that the ordinance said 140 feet. It does say that. So I'm just letting you know, it doesn't.
Well, the application is asking for 175. The Planning Commission recommended 140. I appealed it. I don't know if they appealed it, so I don't know if they're stuck with the recommendation from the Planning Commission, or if they could come in and ask you for 175 feet. I've never heard them come up to, they never come up to me and said, hey, I've heard them say 164 feet. I've never heard them say, Robert, we're going to build 140 feet. But my response to that is all the same. High HR zoning allows up to 250, and I'm very nervous about a stipulation that can be removed later by an abbreviated public process.
But would you be supportive of 140 or?
I would not be supportive of 140.
That's fair to ask. I mean, it's just a fair question.
And as a
that is
matter of
in the
fact,
ordinance.
I believe that most, if not all, of my neighbors. I'm going to go on a limb. My neighbors would not be supportive of 140.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
Is it?
Thank you, Mary.
Please. Okay. I'm going to be very respectful in this request. I'm hoping that we can just continue the dialogue because we have several zoning cases that we need to continue. And if we can just keep the clapping and everything, please go. But if we can move. Alan, there is a question by Councilman DeCiccio about the 140. My understanding it's 140.
Mayor, Councilwoman, Pastor, members of the commission or the council. The difference has to do with what the applicant actually filed for when they filed their actual rezoning case, which is 164 feet in height, versus what the Planning Commission recommended. And so the Planning Commission recommended 140 feet in height. And so that's what comes before you. The practice of the department is to recommend the lower body. So the Planning Commission recommendation was the 140 feet of height.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarity. I believe, are there any other questions?
No, just a comment though too. You're about to get a national tennis tournament at the Phoenix Country Club from March 11th to the 17th. I found out about it a couple weeks ago. So it should be pretty spectacular for the city.
It's where I learned how to play tennis.
Yeah, my girls know how. I don't. That's why they always beat me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warnicki.
Thank you. Tom Chauncey? And we'll give you 10 minutes. and then, because we have more to follow.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Tom Chauncey. I reside at 66 North Country Club Drive. Been there for over 40 years. I'm a member of the Phoenix Country Club, and it pains me to be here to tell you that they are not entitled to request this entitlement for high-rise zoning. The big argument they have for the blighted neighborhood, the intersection, the Phoenix Country Club has caused most of that blight by allowing their landscaping to die on the entire circumference of the parking lot on both sides. For those of you that have been around half as long as I have, you know it used to be a beautiful intersection. They had landscaping around the entire parking lot. It was beautiful. It was handled with pride. You'll have to ask them why they allowed it to die. But to use that as an excuse for a blighted intersection when they have caused it is totally inappropriate. What else is inappropriate is they're doing this despite, look, I like Larry Lazarus. He's a superb lawyer. I really like John Graham. He's a wonderful man. He's a pillar of the community, a great presenter. I wish I had half his class and style. What he doesn't have here, though, is a right to put high-rise zoning outside of this transit-oriented district, outside of the high-rise district, outside of everything that our neighborhoods require, which is the high-rise is supposed to be along Central, and the general plan causes it to decrease slowly as it reaches 7th, 3rd, 7th. It comes down that way, kind of like this. You don't pop it up. It's just wrong, and they're not entitled to have it. I am sorry that they have financial difficulties. I am sorry that they made stupid decisions. I am sorry that they borrowed as much money as they've borrowed. And I'm sorry that the way they did it, so that they ended up having to borrow more to fix things they should have done in the first place. But this is just one more ill-conceived, self-centered, inappropriate gimme, and they want it from the rest of us, and it's wrong. It violates the general plan. And I do want to repeat one thing that Robert said. This is not within the few areas, location and intense land use. The other thing that it's not, and I think this is also very important, when you look at their application, it does go between 1 acre and over 4 1/4 acres. If you grant this high-rise zoning, I guarantee you within 5 years, 10 years, they will be back, not before you. You will all have gone to Congress by then, running the Senate. But they'll be back before this body, and they're going to be asking for a 250-foot high-rise on one of those 4.25 acres that's in their application. You can't afford to grant this without the kind of planning that area deserves, without the kind of planning that gives total support for our general plan when 76 people, 76% of Phoenicians voted for it, but thousands of you, including hundreds of these people and my neighbors, contributed to that general plan. There was outreach. You guys mandated it, the state mandated it, but you guys, the City of Phoenix, did a wonderful job with it. All the stakeholders were involved in it. All the developers were involved with it. This violates that. You can't do that. If you do it, it'll be in every neighborhood in your district. It'll be in your district. It'll be in your district. Whenever there's 2 acres, 4 acres, 1 acre, whatever you want to say this is, and somebody has some money to do it, they can put a high-rise next to you. And I guarantee you most of the people that the club has generated their answers, their petitions for, they wouldn't allow it in their neighborhoods either. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but otherwise, thank you very much for your time. I know it's been difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is Gigi George. Okay, how many minutes do we? Okay, can we go to 15? And then we'll just keep.
Thank you. The countdown.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the time. And Vice Mayor Waring, there was a time that I can remember when spot zoning was this norm in Phoenix, back in the bad old days, when our city allowed high-rise to jump the boundaries of downtown, and downtown suffered in the 1960s and 70s. In my opinion, this council is too intelligent and aware of good planning principles to allow a repeat of those past mistakes. Revitalization of our central city finally occurred because Phoenix leaders decided that cohesive planning and concentration of infrastructure investment was needed in this city. They took steps to implement responsible land and infrastructure planning by involving thousands of residents who contributed countless hours, I know I did, and with considerable investment by our city. I hope you continue to demonstrate the enlightened and physically responsible leadership our city needs by voting no on this rezoning outside the light rail corridor. Thank you very much for your time. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, that was Gigi. Okay, so I have, donate my time to Tom Parker, donating my time to Jeanne Yeager, Jeannie, and then donate time to Neil Haddad. So we have 13 minutes. How do we want to go in order? And then I have the individuals if there's still time. Are you Tom? I'm Tom. Okay. Then Jeannie, are you next? Okay.
Mayor, councilmen and women. My name is Tom Parker. I'm at 2720 North 10th Street. My wife and I have lived there over 20 years. Our kids went to North High and really like that neighborhood and appreciate our neighbors at Phoenix Country Club. Love the beauty of their golf course and the club. I do wish they had kept better track of their corner. It does seem a bit odd for a group to say a corner is blighted when they're not keeping it up. We wish for them to do well. We wish for development in the city of Phoenix, but we wish for development that's over 5 stories to be between 3rd and 3rd that fits well with the kind of plan that we've got going in Phoenix. We do not need more density right now where we are. If you've ever driven 7th Street in the morning or in the afternoon, or Thomas in the morning or afternoon, it's full. We're very glad for the fullness of high school students that get in and off of a bus. It's great. We just do not need more on a street with a suicide lane. We would be fine if the Phoenix Country Club wishes to have 5-story buildings on its property. That seems far-fetched to me that they would do that, but that would be within their purview, and we would be fine with that. And we wish them well, but we would like you to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Mayor Williams and City Council members, oops. I was prohibited from bringing in my Lego display, so I did bring the tower. But I think everybody, they wouldn't let me bring in the board. I was stopped. So I think everybody has seen the Lego display, the looming tower, either on Nextdoor, social media, or maybe in a photograph somewhere. I did send it to all of you. Next, we do have drone photos that were taken by a professional photographer at the height of 160 feet, and that is looking south. Oops, I have a clicker. Okay. I don't know how to click it. Sorry. Oh. Did it go? Okay, this is looks like east, And yeah, I can almost see my house from here. I do have one of the closest houses to the project. I had somebody do a direct line from my house to the building. It's 400 feet. Not from my lot. My house backs to Thomas Road. And that, we'll go to the next one. Oh, well, it's gone. I was going to show you the great views in north, south, east, west. Okay, there is west. Okay, and there is north. So North Country Club Drive. Great. I just have a short blurb. You all are familiar with the staff report, and they did call this spot zoning, and it is not appropriate. We do have a city zoning ordinance, and one of its purposes is to implement the voter-mandated general plan. The request to rezone the country club parcel goes against the general plan, and in that respect is also a violation of the zoning ordinance. We know the purpose of a developer is to make money. We know the basis of this request for the country club is to make money. The supporters of the project speculate about how much millions, hundred thousands of dollars that this is going to generate for the city and the schools at this location. Why don't we speculate how much money would be generated for the city if it was in the central corridor? They could go higher, they could go bigger, there could be more units, dwelling units, be far more money in the central and light rail corridor. And actually there is land available on along Central, just an FYI. There will be a breach of trust of all the businesses and residents who have invested all their time, effort, and money in the central core if spot zoning is allowed outside the general plan. It is bad policy to reward the club at the expense and detriment of homeowners who will be negatively impacted by a high-rise tower looming over them, and setting the precedent for the same to be inflicted on other neighborhoods citywide. This high-rise rezoning is opposed by hundreds of neighbors who live near it. It is opposed by numerous neighborhood associations and by residents citywide who know the precedent will cause even more inappropriate development. Please vote no. Thank you.
Neil Haddad?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you. For the neighbors who are in opposition, if you can stand, if you would just stand up for a second just to let everybody know. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You can be seated, thanks. This case is all about doing the right thing, and that means voting to deny this proposal. The right thing would be for a project of this height to be on Central Avenue. It is not. The right thing would be for this project to be in the transit-oriented district. It is not. The right thing would be for this project to be compatible with the surrounding area. It certainly is not. The right thing would be for this project to be a benefit to all of us, yet it only benefits the members of a private and exclusive club looking to make it even more exclusive by walling off the remaining open space around the club property. Proponents state that someone who sat on the Plan Phoenix committee wrote that the project is in compliance with the general plan. It is presumptuous for one person who sat on a committee to override the input and participation of his fellow general plan committee members. It is also outrageous that one person can claim that hundreds of residents who participated in the formulation of the plan for thousands of hours are wrong in their interpretation. The Planning and Development staff report clearly spells out that this application is not in compliance with the general plan. If this were the right project in the right place, it would have sailed through the public hearing process. Instead, it's been a long, arduous slog. The case was heard at the Encanto Village Planning Committee in September. Nearly 100 citizens turned out to oppose the application, and Encanto Village members denied the proposal 13-2. There were 2 neighborhood meetings, and opponents outnumbered those in favor by 5-1. No one has offered any compelling reasons why this project should be approved. The golf course itself is a county island and, as we understand it, pays no city taxes. What more can we do to help this group? There is an option. They can build within the constraints of the R5 designation. That would provide them with more units and potentially more members. This project is all about doing the right thing. The right thing is clear. Deny this application. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have some other cards, and we have 6 minutes. So I'll just name them until the 6 minutes are done. Susan Edwards.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm Susan Edwards, and I live at 1145 West Edgemont Avenue, just west of 7th Avenue, which could end up being impacted. I want you all to think about when the last time was shy of 2015, where we had an election and 76% of the voters agreed. That was just 4 years ago, and that was the general plan. Are you really willing to tell all of us, the people that did so much work and all of us that voted for it, you know, shucks, and that was just plan was just for show. You didn't really make that understanding, and why would anyone ever participate on a new general plan? 87% of the volunteer members of the Encanto Village Planning Committee voted against it. You're telling them, well, your considered opinion, you thought a lot about it, it's your neighborhood, but it doesn't matter to us. The Planning Committee or department was against it. The thing I'm worried, 2 things I'm worried about. When the next proposal comes in for another, quote, high-rise, quote, just outside the corridor, and surrounding neighborhoods protest, but the developer says, you allowed 7th Street and Thomas, what's different about us? How are you going to say no? And to those neighbors, well, we allowed it before, so we have to allow it now. Too bad for you guys. And where will outside the TOD end? Why do we bother designating one? Is it going to be 51, the I-17? Where? On January 24th, I was stopped at the pretty always horrible traffic on Thomas, and that lot right there was full of cars. I sent you a picture. I live just south of Phoenix College, and before PC built the garage, we had students parking all over our street, including frequently blocking our driveways, which was very annoying. We had to file a permit parking just to get in and out of our homes. Is the country club going to build, I still haven't heard anything, is the country club going to build a parking garage for those 3 acres of cars, or is the developer going to? And if not, where are they going to park? In the neighborhoods across the busy and congested street, like what happened to us? And are they going to have to set up permit parking? And will the city have to build Esplanade-type overpasses for pedestrians so that they don't end up getting killed on Thomas or 7th Street? Please, please vote against this. It'd be great, a few hundred feet away, but not there. Thank you.
Okay, Leah Conrad. Leah and Don, do you want to share your time, or no? Yes. We'll share. I think it's Leah Conrad and Don Conrad. Are you guys? Okay, so you got, one of you want to go speak? No? No? With the next speaker? Okay. Aaron, I don't know how to say your last name.
Hedgedos? H-E-G-E-D-O-S, I think it's there.
Aaron?
Are there people still in?
Are they downstairs?
Are downstairs?
Okay.
First name is Aaron.
I don't know. Okay, summer, oh, okay. James Baldwin, that was easy.
Yes, my name is James Baldwin, and I just came in to support the no votes. I've lived in my house for 40 years, and I just feel this is inappropriate for that location.
Thank you. Jeff Colbert? Jeff here? Okay. Marilyn Riggs? Okay, because I only have 2 more cards. So you could go 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, or Harvey, I want to say Silverman, but, oh, there he is. I think I said it the wrong way.
Thank you.
Sherman, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I want to focus on the spot zoning issue, and particularly point out that if you look at this area from McDowell north to Camelback and from 3rd Street to the 51, there is nothing like this building. And what do I mean by that? Okay, there's 2 high-rise designations, and those are the hospitals. The only other high-rise designation is Crystal Point. Now, everyone's made a big deal about Crystal Point, but the fact is they haven't given you the facts about Crystal Point, okay? Crystal Point was approved not only under an old code, but Crystal Point was built on 4.7 acres, not the size of this property here. Crystal Point's building footprint covers only about 15% of the lot that it sits on. This footprint is closer to 50%. Crystal Point has 56 residential units on 17 floors, about 4 units per floor. This is going to have almost double that density. This is not just a height issue, this is a density issue. Crystal Point has about 460 feet of frontage along Osborne. In contrast, this property barely has that amount of frontage along 2 streets, which is a busy intersection. Crystal Point's owners exit their property and enter their property on Osborne. Totally different from what you have at the corner of Thomas and 7th. Although you can argue that Crystal Point is a high-rise, the only similarity with Crystal Point and this proposal stops with it being a high-rise. If you look at street frontage, traffic egress and ingress, density, all the other things that you have to legally consider, Crystal Point is no precedent for this project. There is nothing between 3rd Street and the 51 and McDowell and Camelback that is anything like this. And I want to leave you with, not only did the staff here say this is spot zoning, but the Arizona Department of Commerce, in its planning and zoning handbook, defines spot zoning as following. It's awarding a classification to an isolated parcel of land, which is detrimental or incompatible with the uses of surrounding area, particularly when such act favors a particular owner. And then later in their handbook they say, if the ordinance is especially tailored to regulate a particular piece of property, it may be struck down as spot zoning. This is spot zoning, not only in violation of the law, but many people believe in violation of the Arizona Constitution, Article 4, Section 2, on special benefit legislation. That's what this is. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we're out of time now.
We do. We only have 2 seconds. She could say no. It was Elizabeth Van Wee, so, all right.
The next 30 minutes will be devoted to those in favor, and I have 20 cards, so we will go through the cards until we run out of time. Mo Stein, you're first. And then Eugene Lipsitz, and then Jim Howard.
Thank you, council members. Ms. Mayor, I am Gene Lippitz. I live at 9 East Country Club. You recently saw this photo, which the first house closest to the proposed development is my home at 9 East. In fact, I may be the closest home to the development. I came to Phoenix last year from Seattle seeking a higher quality of life, and I found it here, so I'm very happy about that. When we came, we knew about the proposed development. We spoke to the developer, who was very open and transparent, and we determined, particularly after examining Portland in the Park, another mixed-use community, residences, businesses, that this, we thought, would be a boon to our quality of life and to the community and to the home. And so we moved, and we would advocate for this. It will strengthen the club, a major greenbelt, and an important, very, very important part of the neighborhood. It will anchor the restoration of what everyone seems to agree is a blighted corner. And it will make me confident that the quality of life that I found here will continue to strengthen over time. So I would ask that you consider approving this rezoning as recommended by the Zoning Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Jim Howard.
Mayor and Council, I'm Mo Stein. I apologize, it took me a little longer to get up here.
Oh.
I was sitting on the other side. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I was the fortunate one, with your good support, that I was asked to chair the general plan in 2002. We got 78% of the vote that year, and then in 2015, when we got 76% of the vote. I'm hoping I'm not so lucky to be around in 2025 to be asked again. That's a joke. I thought we need a little humor tonight. Folks, I'm here, rarely do I come before you to talk about the general plan, but it seemed to me that as I was watching this debate on a project that I have nothing to do with and a country club I do not belong to, that we should talk about the plan a little bit. And a lot has been said about the plan, and it seemed to me that we had missed some of the core elements that we really should be talking about. First of all, our plan was put together because it says, amongst everything else, that what's good is good, but doing something just better because we can isn't what we're all about. Our plan isn't intended to talk about zoning. It's intended to cause a conversation about plan. And to the extent that we've had some conversation here this afternoon about plan, I think that's really good. It was intended so that people, whether you're a proponent or an opponent of a project, would have the opportunity to have an equal opportunity to talk about those planning principles that were core to what we want to do. And that's why we're here today. It worked out, the purpose of that was to talk about strategy and the 5 core elements. And in my observation, it's to do something that's just doing the same thing over and over, because that's just kind of where we get to be kind of off base. The plan says that we should look at opportunities that are unique and special. It's not about spot zoning. You could make that case. I prefer to look at it as it's an opportunity to make place. And it was interesting that we've rarely heard that conversation here in this afternoon about place. Place is what happens when you create opportunities that exist, that you want to exist, not because high-rises cause blight. High-rises don't cause blight. High-rises that aren't taken care of, high-rises that don't activate the ground plane cause blight, right? Inactivity on building sites because they're pushed out and moved to other uses, that causes blight. We have the opportunity to create real place. And yeah, it might be a little bit unusual on a 7th Street site, but look what's happening around us. It wasn't that long ago that we had to reclaim McDowell, and people have been doing that now. It wasn't that long ago that 7th Street got reclaimed by the communities that are around it. McThomas is in the same situation. You have one of the leading children's hospitals in America with high-rise zoning, real high-rise zoning down at the end. You could put a residential tower on that site for the people who work there who have no other place to live. You know, a half a mile away you have the state's largest employer, and 10 blocks away you have the largest research health institution in the western United States and a medical school about to be done, and 1 mile to the north, the state's largest hospital. One of the things that concerns me is that if we have the opportunity to put one of those other corners, the same building, and we put affordability into it with real place at the bottom floor, the argument would be completely different, right? I think that the opportunity we have to do something unique, to use our plan effectively, to create opportunity, and to have that dialogue that we're having today is what's really important. And that is why we put the plan together. And that is why I think 76% of the people voted for it, because it was that opportunity to make place. And as Larry mentioned out, of the 5 core values, the single most important one, and the one that I can tell you we talked about every single meeting we had for 4 years, was how we connect people in place. And if we can do that, then you have to, then that's why we're all here, is the challenge about our votes and our opportunity to create that message. Thanks for your time.
Jim Howard, 1001 West Encanto Boulevard. I'm going to make my comments very brief. I think a very important point to be made that the project that's being proposed is really a quality architectural project, not the tower or box as represented. It will be an amenity, and I think Mo said it right when he talked about a sense of place to an area where market forces to date have really not provided a redevelopment, just the opposite. And I think maybe most importantly, when you look at Phoenix as a city that's growing in its urbanization, density is a natural part of that process. And density in neighborhoods is always controversial. I ask you to vote in favor of the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have James and Patience Huntwork.
Thank you. My name is Jim Huntwork. I live at 374 East Monte Vista Road, which is in a historic district south of Thomas, about 250 feet west of 7th Street. I've lived there for 41 years, and during that time, my neighbors and I have fought a number of zoning and court battles when our neighborhood has been threatened. Based on that experience, I can certainly understand the concerns and feelings of all the people who are here this evening. Change is scary, and big change is even more scary. But what I don't understand is the logic. None of the issues that we have fought against in the past is involved in this case. This zoning obviously will not harm any historic or other structures because we're talking about a bare parking lot that has been there at least 41 years that I've lived there, and I'm sure longer. This would not increase traffic on any residential streets. The development will exit and enter directly from Thomas and 7th Street. That has been touted as a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. The point is we're keeping traffic off of the residential streets and onto the main collectors. This would not push an incompatible use deeper into a residential area. Again, the site fronts directly on the 2 adjoining thoroughfares. And as a residential development of high quality, it will ultimately increase our collective strength to fight against real threats in the future. One very real threat is already evident at this very intersection. Again, the parking lot has been the center of attention for blight, but as was mentioned earlier, 2 of the other 3 corners on this intersection have vacant buildings. One building is surrounded by a chain-link fence, with which graffiti vandals have, of course, already found a way to get across. As you drive south along 7th Street toward my house, you see other vacant lots, shuttered buildings, and a hodgepodge of uses, some of which are clearly omens of potentially further deterioration. I believe that is the real threat that we need your help to protect us against in 2019. The intersection of 7th Street and Thomas Road should be a center of vitality, not of stagnation and deterioration. After being caught, in effect, in a time warp for decades, this zoning application has finally opened the door to making dramatic progress at this location. You can protect and strengthen our Midtown community by voting in favor of this rezoning. Thank you.
This is Patience, right?
Patience Huntworth. The same address as my husband, 374 East Monte Vista. We do live together. I am passionate about preserving neighborhoods, preserving historic homes. I have devoted countless hours and years to that. And in that way, I'm very much like Robert Warneke. But my views of this project are diametrically opposed. And that's what makes this a great country. We can disagree, and then you have to make the decision. One thing I've learned is that blighted properties and empty lots on 7th Street, like those that currently exist, are our biggest threat, while desirable upgraded uses are to be welcomed as beneficial to the neighborhood's future, not just the country club, the neighborhoods. But my real reason for being here is to take issue with the campaign of the opponents. And as far as I can determine, there is not one iota of factual support that this tower will threaten or destroy any home. The slogan, Save Phoenix Homes, Stop the Tower, Hide its Blight, falsely imply that this luxury high-rise not just endangers, but destroys these homes. In fact, if you know Phoenix, you can see gems of historic neighborhoods coexisting with high-rises. High-rises are the future of Phoenix and other cities, and there is no support for the assertion that they are incompatible with single-family homes. It's regrettable that the debate over such an important project, over such a potentially beneficial project, has deteriorated to the point that anti-business slogans pass as carefully considered strategic city planning. This proposal is an economic boon for the neighborhoods, and it will bring a transformed image for 7th Street, one more attractive to families and all generations. It deserves the council's vote of confidence.
Thank you. Dr. Carol Poor, who would be followed by Kevin Kilb.
Mayor and Council, my name is Carol Poor. I live at 200 West Portland, at Portland on the Park. I'm a Phoenix native, and I grew up in the area of 7th Street. My mother went to North High School, so I come from a long family of stewards of that neighborhood and deeply respect the various opinions today. I served as vice chair of Plan Phoenix, and we underwent a 3-year public input process to come up with the 5 visionary values that Larry talked about earlier. And as a longtime native Phoenician, decades and decades, we know driving by 7th Street in Thomas, it's been a vacant lot, it's been a blacktop. And so the opportunity to have something there that could add vibrancy to the community and touch on all of the various Plan Phoenix points, and what the ones that come to mind personally for me is the ability to connect people and places. The sidewalk and the landscape that you see surrounding this design is spectacular and offers an opportunity for engagement on the sidewalk for North High students and other people that are standing and waiting for mass transit in that area, as well as the ability to strengthen the local economy with the other corners there that have not been very vibrant. And in fact, they've been rather scary, as you saw with the one corner with the check cashing, the former check cashing place. But those have opportunities to become activated in restaurants and other retail that would be really fun and activate the place. But finally, and very important, I trust the integrity of the developer. John Graham, being a Phoenix native himself, grew up in that whole area, went to high school in the area, but his projects are spectacular. And in full disclosure, I live in one of them, Portland on the Park. But what that community has done for the area around Central and Portland is spectacular. And when I saw the plans for this, it made me very excited that we could create something vibrant, of high quality, that would replace what currently now has been, for decades and decades, a vacant blacktop that has brought no vibrancy to that area. And I echo some of the things that others have said about this city is becoming more dense, and that's why we need more exciting projects like this to bring people together, to go vertical upward, and that intersection is a gateway to downtown as well as a gateway to Midtown. And so I respectfully support this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And then Elaine Walter.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'd like to start by just saying thank you to you and your staff for the diligence in this matter. It's very emotional. These are the communities that we live in. So thank you for that. This is not easy. Leadership is not easy. I live at 160 North Country Club Drive in the Phoenix Country Club neighborhood. I live there with my wife and 3 children. We moved there 6 years ago. It's the first home we've ever owned. I've retired from the Air Force, having gone to high school here in Phoenix and college down in Tucson, pilot training out at Williams before, unfortunately, the Air Force chose to close that. Best pilot training base in the world, by the way. We came back to raise our family here. We've had the opportunity to live in lots of communities around our great country and in other countries, and Phoenix is unique. It's unique because of the ability to live downtown in the 5th largest metropolitan city in the United States and live in a single-family neighborhood that coexists in a very urban environment, an environment that's getting more urban and more habitated. It is very unique, and with that uniqueness comes tension. And we've seen that certainly play out this afternoon. This debate is good. I'm thankful for Mr. Stein's remarks. I've not met him. I was getting a little confused with a lot of the bureaucratic kung fu about city plans and zoning, and at the end of the day, it's my understanding that this project's been recommended to the council with a 5-2 vote with stipulations that the developer is going to meet. And so now the debate is open for a final decision, and I think we welcome that. I certainly know that the neighborhoods do. Our specific street on North Country Club Drive is really, I think, interesting and indicative of what's going on in the larger downtown Phoenix area. We have 27 single-family homes, 20 homes, 7 townhouses just on North Country Club Drive. 11 of them have small children. 6 of those 11 families have moved in the last 4 years. And when I say small children, I'm talking about middle school, elementary, and preschool. Young families choosing to move downtown and experience the unique urban living opportunity that Phoenix provides. And they're choosing this neighborhood. Not the Phoenix Country Club neighborhood per se, but the neighborhood that is down on 7th Street. The challenge is the renaissance we've seen on 7th Street kind of stops dead at Osborne, 7th Street. I mean, there's a break between Camelback and Indian School, and we know why. There's high schools and a park and the VA. But then from Osborne all the way down to the freeway, not seeing the same sort of redevelopment, whether that's called infill, whether that, I don't know what that's called. I just know that it's not happening. And I don't know what would make it happen, aside from a bold project that brings the right density to the right place at the right time. And the one thing that I would add to that is the right team. So I've heard it, and I am a member of the Phoenix Country Club, and it's not my understanding that this project is required for the Phoenix Country Club's fiscal survival. It's not my understanding. I'll let members of the board address that if they need to, but the club is growing, and it's growing with young families. The club has secured for 10 years a professional golf tournament, a senior PGA championship golf tournament. As Councilman DeCiccio mentioned, we're also hosting a national tennis tournament. There is a lot of fantastic things happening at the club, and now there is an opportunity to expand the club's residence opportunity with a developer that is not familiar with Phoenix. I mean, he's the Valley Leadership Man of the Year with 30 years of experience. I mean, and if you look at that press release on what his qualifications are to be a leader in the community, it speaks for itself. So I've not seen where there's been a confluence of opportunity come together in a bold move to show leadership and drive economic development that the club membership voted 70% overwhelmingly to support the project. So the club has to agree to sell part of the land. We have to find a developer willing to put some sort of project on there that will drive the right economic development to revitalize the community. And I think we found that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Elaine Walter, and then Roland Rios.
Mayor, council members, my name is Elaine Walter. I've lived in Midtown for a little over 20 years at 855 East Edgemont Avenue, which is exactly 1 block south of Thomas. I live in Country Club Park, and I can see 4 high-rises from my front yard. I'd like to see 5, and I would love to continue to see the Phoenix Country Club 4th of July fireworks from my front yard. The reason I'm supporting this project is because it doesn't destroy any existing homes, it doesn't deny the neighborhood any of its obvious charms, and it appears to me to be a unique situation where you can utilize the parking lot of the country club to build a less dense high-rise, mid-rise opportunity that is supported by all the growth that we're seeing in the Midtown area. At the moment, I drive from 3rd Street to 3rd Street, from Van Buren up to Indian School, and I don't see a lot of land left to develop between the threes. And I wonder about that and what that might do at some point to the plan. I wouldn't support a project that was set down in the middle of Country Club Park or in the middle of Coronado, and that's not what this is about at all. Density as respects the number of units in the structure and the amount of traffic is so much less than what these 4- and 5-story apartment complexes are doing. As an example, Alta Midtown's 253 units. This is going to be, I believe, 125. A lot less traffic. I think attracting people with sizable discretionary income would be a wonderful thing for the area. It'd be a real growth opportunity for businesses, and I think hopefully it would help ease some of the issues we've been talking about with blight and improving things further down 7th Street. And then on the financial side of it, as respects people's homes values, I would think that if you're averaging $750,000 a unit, that it might impact in a positive way everybody's home prices, as well as provide some tax base for the city, definitely for the schools, county. And then the sales tax on the construction project alone, I think, would bring in $4.5 to $5 million, which I'm sure the city could use. So I just feel very strongly it would be a good thing for the neighborhood, and would appreciate the council's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Roland?
Yes.
Okay. And then Michael Jordan.
All right. Thank you. I live at 801 East Edgemont Avenue, and that's 2 houses down from where this project would be built. I could walk out into my front yard and see the project right from my front yard. And my fiance and I, who bought a blighted house and remodeled it, love that neighborhood, and we fully support this project and want approval for this project. And what I would offer as advice to the city council, if I could be so bold, is to take what the chairman of the general planning committee just told you. He said that the general plan is not about saying something doesn't belong there, but it's about recognizing an opportunity. This is an opportunity for that corner. This is an opportunity for a blighted corner. This is an opportunity for the city, and this is an opportunity for our area to add more residents who will care about the area, to add more value to the city, to really help a corner that needs help, to increase development there on those 3 corners, the 2 corners that are vacant, and hopefully help to develop that corner with the Circle K on it so that it's not so much of an eyesore as it is right now. That's an opportunity. And that's what the general plan is about, and that's what you were told the general plan is about, and that's what needs to be the guiding principle for this. There are a ton of reasons to vote yes for this. This is not going to destroy homes. This is not going to destroy the area. This is going to help the area. And I would urge you to vote yes.
Thank you. Michael Jordan? We're all waiting with anticipation.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Honorable Council. Yes, you don't recognize me. I'm the vintage version. Anyways, thank you for this opportunity to come down and allow me to express my support for this project. My wife and I have a small business right there on 7th Street, and as has been mentioned, the area between McDowell all the way up to Osborne, development's been somewhat stagnant, and this project here excites me, excites my wife as an opportunity to provide some growth and development and some energy to the area without harming the Coronado housing area. The homeowners there have done a fabulous job of developing that neighborhood and keeping it up. And we just need a little more revenue in that area. My wife and I would welcome the residents to this project. We think that it would generate a little more demand for services in the area. Hopefully that would result in kickstarting development between McDowell and Osborne. And I think we would find a cohesiveness of that type of environment as opposed to the stagnant environment we have right now. And with all due respect, we would wholeheartedly endorse this project, and thank you for this opportunity to express that.
Thank you.
I thought Jerry Colangelo was bringing in the big guns, and he sure did.
Elizabeth Maupin?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Elizabeth Maupin. I live at 801 East Edgemont Avenue. My home is probably one of the closest homes to this proposed development, and I fully support it. That corner is blighted. That's a corner that I see every day coming home. Vacant lot, vacant building that I believe was a payday loan center, et cetera. The area needs vitalization. Phoenix is on the verge, I believe, of becoming a major city. I envision Phoenix with many high-rises. I think that's what major cities have in their core, and I believe 7th Street and Thomas is part of that. It is, from the view from my house, I can see high-rises. I don't see this being any different. This is a luxury high-rise. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the proposal by the developer because they have experience. They can, I've seen Portland on Park. I went and viewed it. I was delighted that that was something that would be close to my home. I think of major urban cities, New York City, San Francisco, et cetera, where you see few low homes surrounded by high-rises all over the place, and that's something that I encourage to the area. I chose to live in a downtown area. I don't live in a suburb like Gilbert, Chandler, et cetera. I like the idea of walkability. I like the idea of this type of high-rise bringing in restaurants like the Vig, Postino, et cetera, to this area, which I believe would happen when you're increasing the density and bringing in new families, new expendable incomes, et cetera, to the area. My home was recently revitalized. It is in the Coronado neighborhood. The Coronado neighborhood has a home tour this weekend. There are 10 homes on tour. My home is one of those homes on tour. And I'm proud of my home. I care deeply about my neighborhood. I'm very involved in the Coronado neighborhood. And I very much support this project. I'm looking forward to the property taxes that will come in to support our local schools, which will be astounding by this project. And I also see that if this project is not approved, I wholeheartedly believe that what would happen in the future is this is a large area, and I believe that if the country club needs to get more income from this area, they very likely will use it to be your typical Phoenix, Arizona 3 to 4 story sprawled out apartment complex, which would house twice, if not triple, the amount of units, causing more traffic. They would be lower income units. They wouldn't bring the same boost that I think this project would. I look at areas like Roosevelt that has been very developed. It's starting to look a lot more urban with restaurants along the streets, high-rises in the area. I like that. I think we should invite things like that. This is so close to the downtown area. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are out of time. I was going to give a rebuttal. It can be Larry or John. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you for the chance to rebuttal. So I'm going to do the old deal where I know your audience and know when to sit down. And there's really nothing new I can add. I want to add that have really learned to respect our opposition, and they've said nice things about me, so I definitely want to say that about them. This is one of those deals that will either prevail with grace or will lose with grace, and continue to respect the process and love the city that I live in, and really don't need to add more than that.
What do you say after that? Hopefully nothing.
We knew you couldn't resist.
I didn't catch that. The general plan and the other plans we've been talking about are guides. I can pick out aspects of that general plan and show you how we meet those guides. Opposition can pick out other portions of that plan and say how they don't think we meet those guidelines. I think Mo said it best.
what we're trying to do, and what John is trying to do, is create a sense of place, a community. He started this out by saying that I don't build buildings, I build communities. And I think he really chooses to build a community here. And he doesn't want to destroy what's around it. In fact, it enhances that. What I was going to say, and by the way, a good example of why this is a guide is there aren't hard lines. It's not like a zoning map. So if the TOD happens to stop at 7th on the west side, that doesn't mean the principals don't go to the east side. The street does not stop trying to redevelop the other side of the street and creating a concept that will begin helping that redevelopment occur. So the two other items I wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to, and I'm going to be very brief about this, is what this also does is it celebrates our diverse community. We have had recent developments of apartments after apartments moving towards the same market in this community. We can achieve diversity by creating alternatives. Yes, we could build a lot more units at 4 or 5 stories, but they'd be apartments. They'd be wood frame apartments, and they'd be marketed to the same people that live in those apartments. What we want to do is we want to create something that is very different. And anytime you create something that's different, oftentimes people don't like change. But this development, like other developments in this town, where there is high-rise, it does create stability, desirability, and prosperity for surrounding communities. You see that in our historic properties around high-rises. In fact, the opposite is true. One only need take a look at Willow, Roosevelt, Ashland Place. History has shown that stability has increased, desirability has increased, and in fact, the neighborhood has increased in value. Creating a vibrant downtown was the last aspect of the general plan that I wanted to talk about. And it specifically states, and I'm quoting it, this requires a variety of living options of high quality in greater downtown, including this neighborhood is identified in greater downtown, to encourage communities and neighborhoods to mix ages, ethnicities, in a diverse range of housing choices. That's what we're doing here. We're encouraging, as it states in the plan, that downtown and surrounding neighborhoods offering housing choices from penthouses to live-work condos, urban lofts, former industrial and commercial buildings, into well-designed apartment complexes, all of which provide a range of housing, a diverse population. This development provides that option. It is a quality, high, mid-rise development that is going to, well, it's not a high-rise development. At 140 feet, it is considered in most communities a mid-rise. When you get to 225, 175, 200, those are considered high-rise communities. It is a high-rise application because that's the only way you can apply for these things. We think the values that we're bringing to this community and the potential for redevelopment is appropriate. Thank you.
With that, I will close the public hearing. Councilwoman, do you have comments, motion?
I have a lot of comments. And this has been a very interesting process for me in this contentious, and I wouldn't even say it's really contentious, and really wanting to build a great community on 4 corners. Alta Midtown, which was a contentious piece at one point, and it wasn't really contentious because Mike Curley understood and got what was needed on that corner. And Mike Curley met with me, and I said, like I say in all developments, I never discourage anybody to develop. I encourage people to work with the neighborhood that they want to develop in, and I encourage people to connect with those neighborhoods in those areas. I also told Mike Hurley that there was a historic home there, and that I was not going to go against in saving that historic home. So I highly encouraged him that he go around a neighborhood and see, and the developers to see what they could do with that historic home. Well, the Winnie Ruth Judd home is still there, and it was saved. And that's some of my experience in development. Most time, you and I were a team together. I got here a freshman. First assignment was general plan. As I sat on the village, in Cano Village, for 8 years. So I know the dynamics that happens on 7th Street because I sat on the village when it was all about height on 7th Street. And Ton Simplot was the councilman. Right on 7th Street and Thomas, and that whole pathway area. And Mo, you taught me a lot in development. We had some conversations. And I think you said it best right now, in the sense of placement and connectivity. And what does that look like for a neighborhood? And how does it impact neighborhoods? Because the connectivity, for me, is the four corners. And are all those neighborhoods around there that are affected by the four corners. And in this whole process and dynamic, I've gotten calls stating, oh, I'm a friend, you should really look at this. We have friends that, influential friends that have supported you and given to you. I've known your dad a long time, and I supported you because I knew your dad. People are going to come, protest you, people are going to recall you, a number of things. So I think one thing that anybody knows about me is I'm consistent. What people know about me is that things like that don't scare me. And I'm saying this because this is what has been coming my way for quite some time. And I don't take it personally, because if I took it personally, I wouldn't be able to survive the position I sit in. So, I think something needs to happen on the four corners. What it is, that's up to the neighborhood and the country club. So what I'm asking is if the country club is willing to do a continuance. And what I'm going to ask is that I would like 5 people from the neighborhood in all 4 corners to meet with me and to meet with the developer. And I would also ask that we look at the height, that we look at the, I want to say activity, but that's not the word, to engage the 4 corners, to activate the 4 corners, the pieces that the neighborhood has been speaking about and talking about. The reason why I asked the mayor to allow testimony is because I think it's good for a good dialogue and to hear testimony. For all my colleagues to hear the testimony and understand. The other piece is that I also think it's important that some of these answers that the community has asked and some of the items that are in the staff report to be answered. And so those of you that would like to work with me and the community, please let me know. But I'm asking for a continuance. I would like to know if that's possible. If not, then I will take it to a vote. Till the next, in 2 weeks. When's the next one?
Point of information, how long are you talking about?
I'm looking at the next meeting.
Next week? Oh, darn.
March the 6th, I'll be on the phone.
When's the next hearing?
March 20th. Yes. March 6th, just so that you know that I'm not missing a meeting just to miss a meeting. March 6th, we are receiving an award for my dad in DC, and so I will be in DC on the phone as I wait patiently to see at what point we will receive the award. So I just want to let you know where I'm at.
Maybe we have 1 minute.
Yep.
And may I ask representatives of the board of the country club to meet me at the back of the room so that we can talk for a couple seconds.
The next day.
21st, she's sworn in. I know. That's why I want to get it done. Can you start the time?
Could we get him to come back?
We have 3 minutes. We're going to put 3 minutes on the clock.
Mr. Lazarus?
Of the board members that were here, they have indicated that they would agree to a continuance. We want to make it clear that we hope this is the consensus of the entire council, that this is going to be something that will be beneficial for not only Mr. Graham, but the community, and that this is a continuance that they agree with, and we're just not prolonging the agony of this particular case, which has taken almost 4 years. And I
Okay.
just wanted to put that on
So
record.
let me clear that up for you.
I'm sorry.
There's a lot of agony that everybody has been going through.
I'm
So
not
let's
saying
just-
what's one-sided.
Yeah, let's just get clear. In this time, it's going to be me, the developer, and 5 neighbors from all the 4 corners that are willing to sit and discuss the height, the activation, and we can talk about design if we'd like, but those are the 3 areas that I will be part of. Yes, so I'm making the motion to continue.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mayor, can I ask Larry a question? I think he brings up a really good point here. So, I mean, you know, height is going to be on the table. And you're right about the agony on that thing. I mean, I don't have a problem with a continuance at all on that if it means that you're going to get to a productive outcome on this thing, Larry. But is 140 a solid, I mean, you have to really think that thing through. And you don't have to answer this because it's not meant to put you on a spot, though. But the height is where the majority of the neighbors have always been there. I don't think that's changed since this debate has started. If it doesn't appear to be on your list, then it becomes a prolonging of agony for everybody. If it is on your list, then I don't have a problem either moving forward with a continuance. I want to make sure that whatever is occurring is fair and equitable to everybody, and that it's not a leading on either just to prolong something because people want to delay a vote.
I don't want to delay the vote,
Well,
but I'm asking for a
I'm not
continuance because
I'm not asking that. I'm sorry, I have the floor. And I've heard your speech before. You did it on the water vote. You did it on the Sun's vote. You disparaged people in the audience.
Come on,
Don't
please.
even go there.
It was just
Sal
inappropriate.
has the floor.
No, it was
I'm trying to be
inappropriate.
positive. I'm trying to be
So I wanna
positive
get
here.
to a point here
I'm gonna
we-
roll
where I
you
understand
both
where
out
you're
of
going.
order.
Yeah. We can look at modifications of height based on the 144 feet that we've been talking about. If there's an expectation that we are going to be going down to a 5-story, under 100 feet, another apartment complex, we're not, the club is not interested in doing that. We're not interested in doing that. If that's where we're going, and we're going to have another month playing around with this, then I'd rather you just vote on it tonight. And I think I speak for you. I'm glad the opposition agrees with me.
Well,
I would be.
So you have very honorable people on all sides.
I would be
of this.
much happier if the proponents also felt that we're willing to talk within parameters, but we're not going to go back down to something that's going to be another apartment complex. I just want to be clear about that.
So from my end of it, I'm seeing some positive thought here. I don't think it hurts anyone if it does go to an extra month or so, if that's where you're going to be on that. And I heard that there's some room. So from my end of it, I mean, I will always, do what I have to do to support the local person there. But I want to make it very clear, there are honorable people on both sides of this. There are no threats. There's nothing occurring there. It's all about trying to find ways to do something right for the city of Phoenix and to trying to find, debate that we're having on zoning is occurring all over the city. It's happening in my area, it's happening in your, it's happening across the city. So it's not something new to any of us up here. It's just something we deal with, Mr. Warnicki and Mr. Lazarus. I mean, but I want to make sure that whatever occurs, that if this is a meeting that you are going to go into, and I want to hear what Mr. Warnicki has to say because no one asked him yet, but at the same time, it sounds like, well, no, hey, I think it's great you guys are up there together. It's a positive sign. But if there is some movement on both sides, and I think that you've also thrown some ideas out there that I think that should be in consideration. I mean, you've got, I mean, how big is the R5, Alan? That's zone. 40, agreed, but how much area do you have there?
We've got the meeting set up, if we could.
Okay, I'll speed
wrap
it
this
up. I'm sorry,
please.
we've been here a long time, but you know, all right.
The neighborhood's going to have a problem with anything that has HR in it.
Okay, that's for the negotiations at the meeting. And we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous for continuance to March 20th. That brings us to item 99. We have Joanne Scott Woods. Thank you all for coming and for your patience.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I'm going to wait.
Joanne, we'll give you 2 minutes.
You want me to go? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to be really loud.
All right.
I'm going to begin with an example in my life when a young lady could have killed or seriously injured me and others. It happened during rush hour on I-17. An 18-year-old girl driving her grandparents' big, beautiful sedan merged quickly into traffic across 3 busy lanes. I was driving carefully in the 3rd lane over, glancing to my left and to my right, and in a second, I saw her face flash in horror as she hit the passenger side of my car. From the impact, I lost control, my car careening like a bumper car, hitting one car after another and being hit by one car after another. I ended up T-boned against the concrete barrier, driver's side, against the flow of traffic. Looking at the devastation surrounding me, I felt sorrow for those in trauma. Research establishes that our brains are wired, biologically set up to be compassionate. For officers on patrol, sometimes situations develop happening in a split second, ending a life or damaging someone's permanently. This leads to why I want our department to establish a protocol for expressing compassion after a critical incident, not only for the officer who may or may not be at fault, but for the department, the city, the family, and the community's sake. By thus fulfilling our basic instinct to act empathetically, we will all be honoring the sanctity of life, which is an issued directive contained in the first statement of the PPD's manual guidelines for the use of force. The department respects the dignity of all persons and recognizes the sanctity of human life, rights, and liberty. And I have copies for everyone and the city manager and the city clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee Dee Barker, are you still here? Dee Dee left? Okay.
You know it's a long meeting when Dee Dee left.
I know, it's true. Okay, I think
Good
that
places to be.
she has a life.
Well, there you go. We don't, apparently. So are we at,
I think we are now to 100.
do I make a motion? Are you going to take the cards first, or?
Go ahead and make the motion.
Okay. So a motion to support the citizen petition?
Second that, Mayor.
Okay. Susan, did you want to speak?
Good evening. It's not even good afternoon anymore. Good evening. My name is Susan Godino. Of course, I was here January 23rd and petitioned you to stop spending taxpayer dollars on the construction of light rail until our voices are heard, or in August at the citywide election, or depending on the outcome of the frivolous lawsuit that is against us currently. So, again, my name is Susan Godino. I am the treasurer of Building a Better Phoenix. I'm here to let you know that our initiative will be on the August 27th citywide election, as you know. It is futile to continue spending taxpayer dollars on the light rail extension. The Building a Better Phoenix group is growing support each day throughout the city, and it will continue to grow until we go to vote in August. By our growing number of support, there is a great chance that the end result will be in our favor. If you continue spending taxpayer dollars on the light rail expansion, come August, when the vote is in our favor, you will have to explain to the people how more taxpayer dollars will have to be spent to undo what construction has been done due to your request, due to continue spending on the light rail expansion. So please, have a conscience, think about the taxpayer dollars. We're not trying not to waste, just so much money is being thrown away already, so just, gosh, sorry. That's all I have to say. And of course, well, not all. So the light rail costs too much, gives too little, and the future is not 19th century technology. The future is electric buses and cars. Thank you.
Thank you. James Martinez? Kyle Foxcroft?
It's a lot easier to speak to an empty room than it was when it was full. I'm speaking today on behalf of Oakland Neighborhood Association again, and as part of the Downtown Voices Coalition, I am a steering committee member. I strongly oppose this petition, as it seems that maybe Building a Better Phoenix has the gift of foresight, and they have already foreseen what will happen. We believe that the plan should continue as voters have passed, and until the voters have voted against the light rail. At that point, it should be stopped, but the plan should keep going forward until that vote has been taken.
Thank you. We do have 7 cards opposed, but they do not wish to speak. Any further comments?
Mayor.
Roll call.
Oh, Mayor, do.
Sorry.
In favor of this proposal here, I think that the request that they're making is more than reasonable. Why spend another dime if this is going to be on the ballot? They've already collected over 44,000 signatures to put this on the ballot. This is a group of citizens that have gone out of their way. They worked their rear ends off in order to put an issue in front of the voters. And now the City of Phoenix and others want to keep moving forward. By moving forward, they're talking about spending millions of dollars on a proposal that may not even make it through. The polling that's out there shows that the public does not support light rail on its own. They support better streets, they support more police officers, they support more going into South Phoenix, which this proposal does, and it supports more bus service, which your proposal and your initiative has done. So to spend another dime is reckless. It's just not something we should be doing as a city. Whether we support something or not, we should always be protective of the taxpayer dollar. Second, I also had a conversation with some members of the editorial board, and I asked them, I said, look, at the end of the day, a proposal like this really ought to be moved to a November election where they have more voters out there. I think there's a compromise out there. If there was a way to slow this thing down, not slow down, but actually stop everything, allow it to go to a vote where you get more people out, more members of the electorate out there, I think you would have a better, you have more public, when you get more of the public involved in an issue, you have a better say in what the direction should be. So I'm even willing to do that if we're willing to quit wasting money on something that's just not going to work. We can all go through the merits of why light rail just doesn't work in the city of Phoenix, and better bus service would be better. But that's not what this is about today. It's about stopping and allowing taxpayer dollars to be protected. So I'm going to be supporting this proposal. I'm throwing this out there because I've got the floor, but it allows me to talk to the entire council that there is a potential of a compromise here that allows a higher level of voters to go out there and turn out the vote. Whether it's this one or the pension initiative, you do it when there are more people voting, you're going to get a better result. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's not a motion. You want to amend your motion? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, if people are open to that, I'd be happy to. We move the election to a November election.
So, I'm sorry, so can I ask, so could we do that as a vote? Do we have the option of changing when something's on the ballot?
Amend his motion.
Then I'll amend
But
it.
at the same time, it stops everything.
Mayor, Vice
no more
Mayor
dying.
Waring, I understand the request. However, the charter and state law say that in the city charter, primarily for the city, requires that an issue be placed on the next available election date, not less than 120 days from the date the election is called. And with the dates for the certification, there's no way to push it back to November. Now, a court or some other basic could do that, but the council doesn't have the authority to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, there's no point in amending it.
Yeah, there's no point in amending. But I just want to say, I respect what you're saying, but I totally disagree with you.
Thank you for that.
I just feel very strongly that we need a complete transportation plan. We have contracts in place, we have made commitments, and there are neighborhoods that are counting on us going forward, as well as a lot of employees. And until the voters change their mind and the vote is taken, I think we should proceed. And so I will not be supporting the motion. Roll call.
DeCiccio?
Yes.
Guevara?
No.
Mendoza?
No.
Nowakowski? Pastor? Stark? Waring?
Yes.
Williams?
No. So that's 5-2. Fails 5-2. Okay. Thank you very much. We have public comment. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Is that Rosalie?
Yes.
Okay, I got your card. You're first.
My name is Rosalie Trotter, and I live at 1125 North 3rd Street, apartment 202, Deck Park Vista Complex. And I live right across from Martha Hans Park. And it's a music event coming up March the 1st and the 2nd and 3rd of March. And whenever the city give people to have events, they don't tell us. They just, give the people that they can use it, to have the event. But the music be so loud till my apartment be vibrating.
Oh.
And I'm up on the 2nd floor. And my window be closed and my door shut, but the music's so loud. And I realize that people are young people, but if they have events, they should have a supervisor watching over the young people and keeping things that way it should be. But they don't consider us, and I believe it's wrong to do that because we are senior peoples, and not only we see, but people live down the street from us in houses and in nice apartment. And it's very disturbing, and I thank God for being God over all these people blessed to be on this earth. But the city should consider us old people too. Don't you all think that's right? What do you all think?
I think you're right, and I see the city manager's taking your address down, and he's going to have staff contacting you and probably come out and measure the noise to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I appreciate that very much, and I thank you all for your kindness and listening to me. And so this is the first time I've been to a council meeting, but it's a brother in the Lord lived there, and him and his mother. And he always comes to a council meeting, and he's been telling me about it. So I told my husband, I'm going to go to a council meeting. So I thank God for blessing me to be here, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your patience in coming. So, Running Deer? Elizabeth Venable?
Elizabeth Venable, 1950 East Cortez Street, Phoenix, Arizona, 85020. I'm here today because I am involved with communicating and organizing with the homeless community. I know that probably you all are aware of a ruling that came out of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in September regarding the criminalization of camping, which said it was cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment of the Constitution to criminalize camping and sleeping. Tempe has since disbanded its enforcement of its camping ordinance, where Phoenix has not. And I've really known this from talking to homeless people on the ground. I know that the enforcement is exactly the same. People are going to jail literally for sleeping, and I don't find that to be appropriate, especially in the context of the ruling. Now, I understand that Phoenix cares, right? But Phoenix Cares is another program in which people are still being arrested at the end of it for camping or for refusing services. I don't think that this is legal under the ruling, and the National Center on Law and Poverty said that you guys are essentially waiting for a lawsuit. And I would reinforce that, because you are violating this ruling, you are violating the 8th Amendment, and you need to respect people regardless of their economic ability. They need to be able to conduct life-sustaining activities in public without fear of arrest. That includes eating, cooking. Cooking is criminalized as well in public areas. Sleeping, sitting, lying. I'm not saying you should allow people to erect structures necessarily, but these are life-sustaining activities that people have no other option. When you have a city that has approximately more than 5 times the number of people that could fit into CAS every day in your point in time count on the street, there's no way for these people to be getting into shelter. Sure, Community Bridges could offer them on one day, but it's a red herring. It's false, because those people cannot find shelter on most days. And so I would encourage you to, again, look up Martin versus the City of Boise. And I think you will find, if you look at all the details for the City of Phoenix, it applies. And so I hope that you will take that seriously, because to me, the Constitution is a very important thing. I care very deeply about this issue. I care very deeply about the homeless community, and I hope that you will not continue to address them in an unconstitutional manner.
Thank you. Dulce Matus? I probably really messed up your name.
Hello, my name is Dulce Matus. I have multiple properties in the city of Phoenix. I run a business in the city of Phoenix with 33 real estate agents. The reason I'm here today is because the city of Phoenix has been working for the majority of 2018 in the installation of new water lines, which now runs through the streets and previously ran through the alleyways. We were provided with documentation, and a visit from a City of Phoenix representative indicated that this was a mandatory move and that we will require accessibility in our front and backyard for this rerouting. The work in my front yard and backyard was performed in approximately July of 2018. The workers took shovels and dug a trench from the alleyway in the backyard to the front yard. The property has an automated sprinkler system which controls a sprinkler and drip system controlling water lines to the backyard and the front yard. Immediately after the work from the City of Phoenix, we noticed flooding throughout the backyard. Both of these systems lines were terribly damaged throughout their routing in multiple locations throughout the property. The lines were perforated by the shovels used by the Talix Corporation construction crew. I quickly tried to perform some repairs, and I show those pictures to the City of Phoenix and the Talix Construction Company. After a couple of months, I haven't been able to resolve this situation. In fact, I received letters from the City of Phoenix that says, "Dear Mrs. Matus, as promised, I spoke with a member of the City Attorney's Office about your claim. Although Talix Construction was performing work on behalf of the city, they will be responsible for handling your claim. The city is not legally responsible for your damage, and therefore, we are unable to issue any payment." Second letter, almost a month later, "Dear Mrs. Matus, we are sorry to hear of the damage to your yard and landscaping. A private contractor was performing work in the public right-of-way on behalf of the city, and the contractor is responsible for the construction site control. As such, we suggest that you contact them to pursue your claim." I have contacted the office of my councilman, and it's been since July of 2017. There's a couple of months that are running by. I'm not getting any resolution, and I have a couple of questions for you. One, I want you to know about the situation because I'm concerned that as a real estate agent, other taxpayers that live in the City of Phoenix have the same problem that I do. Question number one, why do you allow a City of Phoenix subcontractor to damage the property of taxpayers and get away with it? Number two, how can we hold a company like Talix accountable for their actions? They don't even have a website that reflects they are a legitimate company. Number three, what was the purpose of the City of Phoenix representative going to my house at 6 a.m. with the City of Phoenix and another crew from Talix Construction just to look at the damage of my property but have no resolution? I am very frustrated, and I don't know what to do about it since I already tried to get a resolution from the City of Phoenix, from my councilman, and I have one request. I recommend that companies like Talix and Talix themselves no longer perform work for the City of Phoenix. Thank you.
I will ask the city manager to have senior staff get with you, get the details, and I think you made some very valid points, and we want to help you. So if you could stick around for just a minute and meet with someone, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And thank you for your patience staying here this long. I have no more cards. Meeting's adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry.
I did. I filled out 2 comment cards. One was for my item 99 and one's for a citizen comment.
Okay, just go ahead.
Okay. It's very short. Probably 2 minutes. Thank you, Councilman Waring. Sorry. Okay. I'm submitting a citizen petition putting in place a policy that public statements following a critical incident reflect clear and empathetic communication in accordance with Operations Order 1.1. The purpose statement for the Phoenix Police Department is to ensure safety and security for each person in our community. And they state, "We pledge faithful police service to our community, embracing equal measures of courage, compassion, conscience, and consistency." Such a policy for guiding public information officers could be published as a separate protocol or a single statement at the bottom of the current critical incident transparency protocol. Below are examples of such communications from the Arizona public and the statement from Mark Mayor Mitchell from Tempe, both in reference to the department's officer-involved shooting of 14-year-old Anthony Arce by Officer Joseph Jang. From the Tempe Police Chief Sylvia Moore. She said, the department is committed to remaining open, honest, and empathetic at this time. From the president of the Tempe Officers Association, Rob Ferraro, every member of the Tempe Police Officers Association will hold in our hearts and prayers everyone involved in this incident, their families, and their loved ones. We grieve with the community even as we support our fellow officer. And from the Tempe Mayor, Mark Mitchell, the gravity of this incident weighs heavily on my heart and my mind, not only due to the loss of Antonio, but because of the impact it will have on our community. Only when the facts are known can we begin to heal. Examples of the above statements revealing the prioritization of compassion contain the capability to soothe distress and increase communication, not only from individuals, but between concerned citizens, police, mayor, council, and city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. That's all the cards we have. Pardon me? Okay, then we are adjourned.